Recording in progress.
Got people coming in. Fantastic. Let me just
Nice.
sort out the chat. All right.
Hi, everyone. Coming in.
Perfect. Very warm welcome, everybody.
Hope you're all doing great.
Just make sure that's setting. Let us know where you're joining from, folks. Always good to hear from you in the chat. Hello from Scotland, as ever.
I was actually, last night, I was watching a movie that it's in Scotland.
Oh, it was?
It's a very, not great movie about
Beautiful
a lady.
location, terrible movie.
It's a Christmas movie, okay?
Oh,
so
okay, perfect.
It's a woman that she buys a castle somewhere in Scotland, and then you know, it's Christmas time and all that fun stuff. It's on Netflix. It's called
I remember this movie. Yes.
Yeah. I was watching last night with my mom because I do love watching shitty Christmas
yeah. You want
movies,
TV.
you know?
Yeah.
So I was having a great time, but I do not recommend.
Perfect. No, not a good movie.
Hi, everyone.
Perfect. Hello from Glasgow. Hey, Zoe. Basingstoke. Man, my people have come out. I love it.
Yeah.
Hello from the Netherlands. Catalina. Hello. Hey, Vera. Good to see you. Pauline from LA. I'm missing those LA evenings, man. LA was great. That was.
Yeah.
Lightbox seems like a long time ago now. That's mental.
True. It's very windy here today, at least on the valley where I live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been wet and windy here in Dundee.
How you all doing? You ready to some body sculpting? We're gonna still do just a bit more on the head, but yeah, Robert is saying the wind is picking up, you'll see. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm waiting for the snow. I can feel it coming. Dundee is beautiful in the winter. We have these incredible November sunsets. Like the winter's just stunning for that. But we haven't been hit by the snow just yet. Wind and rain aplenty.
Nice.
My guys went to see the seaside and sent us across the home page. Oh, Vera, that's brilliant. That's great to see. Good to see you folks. Always a pleasure. Some of my Discord folk as well. Shout out to the folks who've been doing the study group for Letitia's webinar. I know that Prashan and Patricia have been looking after you guys. So super stoked to see that. Really cool. I'll pop a link for that as well, actually.
Yeah, that's always good.
Yeah, it's great. Their work's been amazing. So good on you folks. We'll just give it a couple of minutes, let some people come in, and we'll be prepped to start on time.
Do some breathing while we're here.
Yes. Yeah. What was that again? Like, run me through that again, Letitia. Like, I was enjoying that last time.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm anxious, which is all the time in my life, when I need to do a class or I need to start something new or whatever it is, I like to do a couple of breath work just to kind of reset my body. So the science behind is that there is an area in our brain called the amygdala, and that's kind of like the fight or flight sort of area of our body. It's the survival mode, right?
Yep.
So when you learning something new or you have a big meeting or whatever, that area of the brain starts sending cortisol, which is the stress hormone, to kind of get you into that survival mode. Like, hey, we need to be stressed. We need to make this work, yada, yada. A funny fact is that the same hormone that is released for stress is the same for excitement. Right. So the only thing that changes is how you perceive that feeling, you know? So if you are anxious, if you work in your mind that is excitement of something new, you can actually shift the way you feel about your body, even though you're still gonna feel that same feeling. So what breath work does is to so when you stress, obviously your breath becomes a bit more rapid, right? A bit faster. So when you do the breath work, you slowing down intentionally your breath, and that tells your body, hey, I'm all right, I'm not dying, you can relax and stop releasing those stress hormones, you know. And that's why I like doing it. So if you guys want to do it, you can do just three breaths. But what I like to do is the 4x4 breath work, which is you inhale by 4, you hold by 4, you release 4, and you hold 4 again. So if we were to do it, if you guys want to do it,
let's do it.
Close your eyes, stay in a posture of dignity, and then I'm going to count for you all. Okay, so I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to do inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold it, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold it, 2, 3, 4, again, inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold it, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold it, 2, 3, 4, last one, inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold it, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold it, 2, 3, 4. And now breathe normally.
I feel super focused.
Yeah.
That's awesome, actually.
That's just something that would really fast shift your mind, you know, to something
really
new. So if anyone feels inclined, do that anytime you need.
That's actually really good. Yeah. Feel ready to go now. That's fantastic. For those just joining us, just running through the breathing exercises you talked about last time. We're just about to kick off, but yeah, that's fantastic. Calm, relaxed, focused. Let's go. With that said, there we go. Yeah,
Eden said, now I feel relaxation.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
And if you're someone like me that's very anxious, you can do for longer, you know, whatever you need. But sometimes for me, like 3 to 5 times, it already shifts my place.
Nice one.
Awesome.
Well, let's do it. Let's get going. I love it. A huge welcome to everybody joining us. Absolute pleasure to see you all here again. Joining myself and Letitia. Letitia, we are absolutely delighted for this. We are kicking back with designing stylized 3D characters in ZBrush, full body sculpting this time. I know you want to carry on a little bit with the head, and then we're getting on to the full body. Letitia, I've been studying up VizDev sculptor, character modeler, currently supervisor at Walt Disney Animation Studios. Speaking of which, Strange World, it's out. We can talk about it now. Tell me all about it. What am I missing? I haven't got a chance to see it yet. Let's hear it.
You're missing a full packed amount of action, cute creatures, and a very, very heartfelt story. So
beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, a very important message about the world and how we treat the world.
Cool. Let's get out and see it then. Sounds good. Questions this time, folks. Just pop them in the Q&A on the bottom left. And as the webinar goes on, Letitia will just prompt me and we'll get your questions answered. The raise hand as well, you can ask live. Feel free to do so later on in the webinar. We'd love to hear from you guys. What we got happening before I shoot off, we've got some fantastic events happening in the Discord. We've got Letitia's study group, which has been hosted by Prishan and Patricia. Please go and check that out if you're needing some study buddies to carry on what you're working on. And as of tomorrow, we have a whole series of events that are free for everybody, but I know that you folks will love them. We've got some great schools and instructors who are putting on some events with the Discord team, so we'd love to see you there. The rewatch will be available as of Monday, and I think that's it. Without further ado, please take it away, Letitia. The floor is yours. Just give us a shout if you need anything during. All right, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, I hope you're all doing well. We're gonna do some studying as usual. And this is where we left last webinar. So this is where we got with the head. There's still a lot of important things obviously missing. So I wanted to sort of like tap in and see what do we want to do for it. Let me move this around. So, but today we're going to talk mainly about the body. I'm just going to do a few things that I feel like is missing on the head that it's going to make us feel happier about what we did to, you know. So let's do that. I'm just going to do one thing actually, because my ZBrush is acting a bit weird. I'm going to call this head. And I'm going to start a new project just because ZBrush is being weird to me. All right. Let me see. Oh, what the hell? Okay, it's better. All right. So as you all, I think last time we stopped, we were kind of like putting some colors into stuff. So I think we can talk more about color as well. Whoops. Okay. So, all right. So here's our head that we did. Okay. So some important things that to make this feel a bit better. And it's so important what I'm going to say, which are brows and lashes. You know, for cartoon, the face, the iconic part of the face, I mean, not for just cartoon, but anything in life. I always like to say that the most important part of the body is the head to focus. And the most important part of the head are the eyes. So we got to really nail those parts to really give a feeling of a good feeling to our characters. Okay. So right now, this is feeling like he's a bit, you know, not doing so well in life. The eyes are a bit dead and kind of pale and things. So what we're going to do is we're going to, like I said, add brows and lashes, and you're going to see how much it's going to change just adding those things, because again, it's going to bring life to his eyes. Right now it's very dead and weird. Cool. So let's do that. There are many ways to do so, brows especially, but I'm going to do a very simple way, which is basically, I don't think I explained this technique yet. So this is a new thing. But we're going to use a technique called extraction. Okay. That means that any part of the model that I mask, and please let me know in the chat if I ever explain about masking. I can't remember if I did, but all right, I'm going to pretend that I never did explain masking, just so to be sure. So masking, just like in Photoshop or any software you use, if you hold Control, it's going to change your gizmo there. You see, it's now saying mask, and you can mask an area. So if I use the move brush now and I do anything, that area, it's going to be untouched, right? It's masked. So what we're going to do is that we're going to mask the brow shape. So it doesn't need to be perfect. I can just do something like a little shape like this for the brow. Okay. And I'm going to use a technique called extraction. And that technique does is it's going to extract those polygons, duplicate and extract actually. So we can have that geometry, new geometry to work with. So if you want, you can kind of like already kind of shape a little better the thick to thin of the brow. You don't have to, but you know, I like to do it like pretty because I like to work intentionally. So let's say this is going to be his brows. So now that we have the proper mask, I'm going to go to the geometry tab over here. And that's not the tab. I'm going to go to the subtool tab. And inside subtool, there's a bunch of little different palettes. And inside here, there's one called extract, is the last one, all right? So if I go to extract and I click the button, I didn't change anything. I'm just gonna click the button. You see that it's gonna create a geometry there. But if I rotate, it kind of goes away because for now, it's just showing the possibility of that geometry. It's not actually making it. It's just visualizing. Let us visualize what's gonna happen. So if I press again, I can kind of visualize the thickness, can kind of visualize what's going on. Okay. So if we're good with it, which I am, we're going to reshape this a lot. You can just say, click on this button called accept. When you click on this button, this new geometry is going to be made as a new subtool. So I'm going to say accept. And you see up here that there's a new subtool called extract. And that's going to be our brow. Okay. By default, don't ask me why, but by default, it comes masked, you see. So if you want, you can start smoothing a little bit and it kind of holds the shape, which is nice. You see, like I'm smoothing only the borders, but the mask inside is keeping the shape that I want. So that's a nice thing. I don't know why it does it, but it doesn't. And then if to clear a mask, you hold Control, you click and drag, and it's going to clear it. Click and drag outside the model, okay? So now if I go back to my model, you can see that we have brows, very thick, it's very white, but we do have it, all right? So now we can reshape it and do whatever we want. So let's do that. First, I'm going to put a little color to it so it's not, you know, grayish. So on here on my color tab, I'm going to go to a kind of like a brownish, dark black color sort of thing, like something like this. And then on my UI, I have this button, View Object, which I'm going to talk about my UI in a second also, okay? Because I know some people want that. So I'm going to say View Object, and now my brow has that color, okay? View Object, by the way, if you go to color, if you don't not using my UI yet, you can go to color, and then you have the button View Object over there. That's the same thing, it's just the bucket in Photoshop or something. All right, so holding shift, I'm going to smooth a bit more so it's not so, you know, squarish and stuff. And then again, we're working with 3D, so we don't focus only on front and side view. We focus on every view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start pushing this brow in to kind of touch his head a bit better. Okay, something like this. And one thing I love about brows is you can do so much personality to it. So let's think about this. All right. There's so many kind of brows, as you know, like there are brows that you can have going up a bit more and kind of like a little more like a sexy brow kind of thing. There are brows that you can do very, very thick and then it goes thin very fast like so. That's very cool as well sometimes. So you got to think about, again, like what's the story of my character, right? He's kind of like this young boy that is very passionate about his stuff. He's also bullied. He's supposed to look a bit nerdy. So he's smart. So one thing that it's interesting is that you also how you position the brow, right? It makes him a bit sweet, or it can make him do something like it. This is what I'm thinking. I'm not talking about expressions. I'm talking default brow shape. Okay, this gives him a completely different feeling, right? So we got to think about like some people, their brows just gives you a feeling even by default. They don't need to be doing any expression, you know. So because he's like smart and kind of like what's the word for it? I'm like alert sort of thing. I like to think that I'm going to give a little bit of like that, this going down just a smidge to kind of make him a bit, not like super sweet and, you know, kind of thing. So that's what I'm doing here. One thing I like to do is, again, like think about the thick to thin of the brow. So I'm kind of making it graphic here, not too round and squishy, but again, like every decision counts. Like what I'm doing here is keeping straight and then it curves down like this. So here is very thick and then it's going to go thin. And And if you don't know what to do with your brows, obviously always collect some reference. And we can see here, for example, how Luca's brow, it's very graphic, like thick to thin kind of thing. We can see some of the princesses here. If I make this bigger, you can see that some of them has a little thicker brow, longer. Some of them has very thin. And even though she's doing an expression, right, by default, she has this sort of like S curve going on like this, which is very nice. Anna, because she's a bit, well, you can't see her brow, but you can see here like the thick to thin going on. Meridian, you know, she has a bit more hair, so it's a bit more bushy. This one has very thin, almost fading out. So let me find, oh yeah, you can see here in Mulan, very interesting. It's like thin to thick to thin, which is a bit different. Let's see a few more. And I'm going to talk about this board in a second, okay? You can see here on Antonio, you see, he's a little kid. He has that kind of like thick to thin feeling. Miguel has a little thinner brows, but I'm kind of going more on a vibe of like little thicker brows, like this boy here, you know, kind of thing. So, but yeah, again, we can look at this brow, how cool, you see? Like this is very stylized, different feeling. This one very designed, right? It's like pencil brow. Let's see if I can, this one very interesting, right? A little bushy thingy. Yeah, so let's play with that. And again, like, you know, it would change the feeling of your character. Like if you have this kid and I start doing like a very thick, very, very thick, doesn't mean that's not going to work, you know, it's just going to have a different feeling. If I start doing like a thicker brow like this, you see, it has a different feeling, it has a different stylization. Because I'm doing a bit more naturalistic model, I'm going to go a little less, not too pushed, right, on the style, but thick brows are great to push style on things. So think about brows. Okay, the peak of a brow, by the way, it can be like with cartoons, anything can be, right? Anything can be different. But normally, the peak of the brow is on this crest of here. Remember that we added this plane here on the side that was going like this, and this will go here. So that little area is where normally your brow turns and goes down, you know, so just be careful where you put the peak of your brow, because if it's too centered, it might feel a bit weird. But again, it's all depends on the style of what you're doing. So it's just something to keep in mind. So now that you have brows, you can already see that it's a very different feeling for our character. But do not underestimate the power of lashes as well. Lashes are something very powerful and graphic as well to frame the eyes. So especially again for cartoons, stylized art, lashes are very, very important, because again, it's going to bring that contour, that intensity back to the eyes, which is where the action happens, right? I think I'm going to make this just a bit longer like this. And again, I'm just thinking about some shape here. It's a very experimental. It's not something I know what I want to do. But again, I always like to play with this thick to thin when I'm designing in 3D. Something like this could be cool. All right. And for the lashes, all right, we can do a few things on the lashes. Okay. Okay. We could paint for now, just a little bit of a dark color. And then because I still want to play with proportions and things, sometimes I don't like to do the lashes as a separate geo, because if I change on this subtool, I'm going to have to change on the lashes as well. So sometimes I prefer to just paint for now. And then when we are more close to the final decision of how the face is going to be, then I can go to make the geometry lashes. So let's do that. All right, so we have this going on. One thing I was thinking is, again, like, because I want to make him a bit more like alert, I think is the word, but you can see here on Hero that again, like look at the power of these lashes. Now, I don't know if you guys can imagine what would happen if he didn't have these lashes, but it would be a very different feeling. This is so graphic and framey, you know, so important. So here you can see that the inner part of his eyes is very low compared to the outer part of his eyes, kind of like this kind of diagonal. And that makes him alert, smart. You know, I mean, this is just like, it's not like necessarily every time, but it's just something that it's common when you're trying to do that kind of character. When you invert this and you put this high and this low, you tend to have a little sweeter, calmer look to characters. So what I'm going to do to our character here is give a little bit of that hero tilt here. So kind of has already a little bit. So this is my low point. This is my high point. So I'm just doing that and bringing some of that life back here. All right. So he's already feeling a bit more awake, but he still feels sleepy because there's no lashes. Okay. So let's work on that right now. So again, like I could model, but I'm just going to make this a little thinner, and let's just paint for now. So when you guys get my UI, which is gonna be delivered today, that's a promise. I already recorded the videos this time. You're gonna get, if I press L, not L, sorry, K, you're gonna see that there is an area here called paint. And these are brushes that I made. Some of it is I download, but some I made to paint. So we don't need to be creating paint brushes every time. So I'm going to go here to my airbrush, which is the first one. And as you can see now, if I paint, I'm going to, you know, paint stuff. And again, I'm going to isolate the head here. And I'm just going to paint for now a little bit of that color to create that frame on the eyes. Doesn't need to be perfect. Doesn't need to be anything yet. It's just a little bit, again, so we can feel that framing on the eyes for our character. And something interesting to know in animation, at least with my experience, a lot of animation studios, they do top lashes for male and top and bottom lashes for female. So you're going to see a lot of male characters. They do not have bottom lashes. They only have top lashes. Why is that? Well, you know, sometimes it's like, for some reason, they want to frame a bit better the female eyes. So they keep the male eyes a bit more bare, and the lashes normally are a bit shorter, you know. So it's just something to see, you know, to think about. Well, that's kind of like what they do. But you can see now how he's framing his eyes. Whoa, he doesn't look that anymore, right? He doesn't look like he was sick in bed. He feels alive again, right? And that's a good moment. I don't know if anyone has any questions, but is there any questions there, John?
Not at the moment. I'll keep an eye, folks. If you do want to ask any questions during the webinar, just be sure to use the Q&A function in the bottom left-hand side there, and I will read out your questions to Letitia.
Awesome. So you can see how much it frames the eye, right? Me, myself, I normally like to, even if it's a male character, I do like to paint a little bit of lower lashes as well. So normally I keep it painted. Like I don't make geometry, but I like to do it like just a little bit on the corner here. And then I call it good, something like this. And that was horrible. So I don't think I'm gonna do on this one, but we'll see. We'll test it out. But look at how much life he got, right? I mean, if I load the before, I'm gonna load here the before so you guys can see. Look, this is before. We didn't change anything on the shapes. We just added lashes and brows, and this is after. Look how crazy. That's a lot, right? So yes, I am using pen pressure, Ben. I'm using a Intuos 5 tablet. Yeah, so That's kind of the before and after here. You can see how much it changes, right? All right, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take a break on the head. We're gonna get back to it, don't worry. But after we did that, okay. Oh, actually, let's just adjust the painting a little bit more. Well, maybe not. Nah, let's just go block the body because, like I said, the whole, we don't have the whole yet to understand the part. So without the body, you know, it's just a floating head. And so I don't want to go too far in the head, and then we feel like the body's not matching or whatever. So let's start blocking the body, and that's what we're supposed to do today. So before we start, I'm just going to share my my PDF here. And again, like today, this is webinar 3 of 6, so we're midway. And for today, we're going to talk a little bit about body blockout. We're going to talk a little bit about hand sculpt. We're going to block a very quick hair on him, and hopefully we'll get to ZBrush Dynamesh. If you don't know anything that I'm talking about here, don't worry, it's going to be all explained. Cool. So for the body, okay, this is a crochet from a friend of mine, Raphael. And I love this one because it's very clear and crisp. So if anyone is interested, I can find the link to where to download. But it's very good to kind of feel proportions, where the muscles are and things like that. But again, when you're doing cartoons, sometimes all of that becomes a mush, right? It becomes something different. As you can see here, for example, from Inside Out, these are sort of like the main shape stuff for it. And you got to somehow find a way to fit that in there. Here's something, I love this example from Aladdin. Aladdin is a very designed show, and I love it so much. But you can see here, by the way, Eric Goldberg did design the genie, and is one of the most amazing designs in my opinion. So yeah, you can see here kind of like the simple shapes of every main character on the show, and how they're supposed to feel very different silhouettes and feel different emotions when you look at them. So this is something to think about. Again, we're doing something a bit more naturalistic, which is kind of like Coco and Encanto. So we're going to have a little more anatomy, and I decided to do that just because we can talk a little bit about anatomy a bit more than just doing like tubes or something like that. Okay. So our boy is about 9, just a reminder, somewhere here. He's 10 actually. So, you know, there's a certain head proportion that happens. We're going to talk about that. But one thing also about hands we're going to see. But it's always nice to collect anatomy reference and put on a PDF because the most important thing about anatomy is not like we're going to define a bunch of muscles. He's just a little kid. But it's very important to find the apexes of things in anatomy, right? For example, if we look at the leg here, and we're going to talk about this, okay? But in the leg, there's a certain diagonal going on here, right? The body is full of diagonals, and we're going to talk about that. But you can see this diagonal going on here. We also, if we separate this like so, you can see that if I separate this in 3 parts, 1/3 has the apex, right? Remember last class I talked about apex. Apex is every time there is a curve happening, when you reach the top of that curve and it starts going in, that's apex, okay? This is a very important concept. So if I look at the leg here, the apex happens about 1/3 and then it goes in. And that's important. Why? Because nature normally doesn't go by halves. If I divide this by halves, especially the body, the face still has it, but it's a lot of nature is by 1/3 to 2/3. Okay, so that is very important. It creates a certain dance in the body that is not symmetrical. It's not like this, right? It's a different dance that is like if I divide by 3, there is a different feeling going around. There's something going on that you can see here that's different sizes. Okay. So we're going to talk about that, but let's start blocking the body. Are you guys ready? Is any questions before we start or anything like that?
We have one question from Marie who says, hey, Letitia, do you also test emotions in ZBrush? or do you export the mesh and test it in another 3D software with blend shapes? Thank you for this wonderful webinar series.
Yeah, of course. We can test in ZBrush. We're going to do a few facial expressions and posing inside ZBrush. So yes, we're going to go over that. I think is on webinar 5. We're going to talk about posing and facial expression. So yeah, if you want to see a bit more of that, that's happening soon. Awesome. So let's block some body, okay? And one important concept is the amount of heads. So by default, if we get here, before we go back to ZBrush, if I get this guy here, we can kind of see that if I measure here from here to here, so I have another head here, another head here, another head here, another head here. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And a little bit, right? 7.5, maybe something like that. But this is like a kind of like a heroic kind of feel to it, just a little more head. But this is an adult, right? Developed adult male. When we talk about kids, normally you're gonna play about from 1 to 6, 1 to 4, 1 to 5. So it depends on the age that you want to do. Like we could potentially find some images of, well, we can even look at here. Like if we look at Miguel, where's Miguel? Here. Let's see how many heads Miguel has. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. So Miguel's 5.5. You know, so our character, it's I think is a bit younger than Miguel. So I might do 4.5. I might do 5. We'll see. But you kind of need to feel it, you know, see how things are going. But it's just something to keep in mind, like kids are going to have less heads of tallness, right? And depending on the style that you're doing, right? Even though it might not be a kid, if we find something here that, here, for example, right? It's a very designy. So if we measure here, this is his head, and then he has like 2.5 heads. Is he a kid? No, maybe not. I don't know. But, you know, it depends on the style that you're going for. And again, because we're going kind of naturalistic, we're going to go a bit more world-oriented proportions. Cool. So if we want to be very specific about the amount of heads, we can measure it, yada, yada. So, all right. But I'm not going to go too crazy on that. We can measure by eye, not something that needs to be crazy. All right. So we have our beautiful sphere up here that I always save up there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate it, Control-Shift-D. I'm going to move it here to make the rib cage. All right. Just like the head, remember in the head, we made 5 pieces. We made like this piece, and then we made the jaw piece, ears, nose, and neck. And that's 5 pieces. For the body, we're going to have a few more, but it's very similar. Well, I'm trying to use the minimum amount of pieces to get to that. All right, so this is going to be the rib cage, okay? And I'm going to talk a lot of different anatomy concepts here. So if it gets too much, let me know. If I say too fast, I can repeat myself, okay? So the rib cage by side, it's a bit thinner than a front view. It well, obviously, yeah, no. So this is what I'm doing here, kind of blocking where it's going to be. And a little bit, the minimum amount of shape we need to do for this rib cage is looking from the front. We're going to have the rib cage comes about here. Then we have the apex. It goes in a little bit. It does that kind of arch in the front. And that's about it that we need to do, okay? And here in the center, there's this bone called the sternum. You can touch yourself in the center of it's a very thick bone here called the sternum. So that's a bit flatter area. So let's do that. So I'm going to put the apex a little lower down here. It turns, and then I'm going to push all this topology. I like to see the topology because I can kind of see what's going on with the light. So we can see here that I'm also pushing way too high. one thing that's an important concept is there is a diagonal. You're going to see a lot of diagonals in the body. So the rib cage doesn't sit straight on the body. It sits diagonally. So let's be careful with that. So what I'm doing is I'm lowering this, highering this to create that sort of diagonal going on. All right. Cool, yeah. And okay. You might want to, yeah, that feels pretty good. Doesn't need to go crazy. It's just, for the rib cage also on the profile, the apex is about, again, on the thirds. So if I divide this by 3, the apex is right about here. So it comes down, touches that apex, it goes in, okay? So that's what I'm doing. If we want to have the body color, one cool thing is that right now, whatever color you put here, the sphere is going to take, right? So if you want to sample a color from the color we already created in the model, you go to the area, to the color that you want. So let's say about here, this area, and then you press C. C for color. I'm going to press it, and then it copies that color to here. So you can see that the color comes in. So if I got this red here in the ears, for example, I press C, you can see that it changes to red. So you got to choose the area where to put your gizmo. And again, I'm going to do fill color. So that color stays on the geometry, gets applied. And that's kind of how we're going to block the rib cage for now. So again, I'm going to get I always save this here so I can keep copying it. So Control-Shift-D, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to make the pelvis, okay? So the pelvis, let's see what's the shape of the pelvis here. What happens with the pelvis, okay, is that you have this sort of, what I like to do in 3D is almost like do a little bathing suit feeling, which is like this, and then you cut like this, okay? In profile, what happens? Again, diagonals. Look at this diagonal. Then we're going to have the booty area, and then we're going to have the shorts going like this. So it's very flat in the front, and then we have this curve in the back, right? This diagonal here, and then the little cut for the leg to come out, right? So again, for women, we normally make this a little larger here. There is a bone called a head of a bone, right? You have the femur here. It's going to have the femur bone here. This head here, this little head, it's called the trochanter. And this head here, it pushes some muscles out. For a female, this area, it's larger for us because we're supposed to give birth. So we need more area, more space in this area. And then this trochanter bone, it gets a little larger, and it makes this curve out here be larger on a female body anatomy, whatever it's called. Anyways, so going back here, not gonna go crazy on my anatomy stuff. I'm a nerd for anatomy, as you can tell. But I'm gonna make that pelvis, okay? And again, we're thinking of it as a separate shape, kind of isolated, but we're gonna feel the dance of the shapes when we have them together, okay? So with the move brush, I'm gonna make this a bit flatter, just thinking about that short. And remember, the profile, the front view is actually quite flat, just like this. And in the back, we have the gluteus. What happens in the back here is that the apex is, again, divided on the thirds. So if I divide this in 3, the apex normally gets about here, and then it turns back in. We have this straight line, diagonal going on, and then we're going to have the cut for the short here. If I'm going too fast, please let me know on the channel, okay? So again, I'm trying to do that short sort of shape going on like this, you know, and the leg is going to get inside here. And let's give him a little more booty. Looking from the back, obviously, we know that the butt is kind of like a butterfly. So we have this shape, and then we have this shape going on, like how the muscles go. And to prove that, let's take a look here. The back view. Here we go. So if you think of a butt as a butterfly, you can see here that we have this big wing here, and then we have this lower, smaller wing. It's kind of like this, okay? And women in general, if you're born in a woman body, you're gonna have, we store more fat in this area than men. That's why normally you see men's butt is a bit more defined. It creates this definition, where women is more round because we store more fat in this area by default. Okay, so if I'm looking from the back again, I'm gonna do a little bit of that volume here. And again, looking if I have my apex going on, diagonal going on. All right. And here to just push it in a little bit. So it's going to be that area, like if you think about this is going to come in to accommodate the legs, it would come out like so. So you can see what's going on here. Doesn't need to be crazy yet, just blocking it there. And if we think about head sizes, right, we can see here that I have 1, then I have about 2 here, then I have about 3 here. So he might, we'll see. If I was thinking about 3, 6, he might be about 6 heads tall. Or if we want him to feel a bit younger, we can just pull this up a little more and make the torso a bit shorter. We'll see. Again, it's hard to judge without all the parts, so I'm not going to worry myself too much about this. One thing I like to do now to kind of connect those shapes is to create a another sphere. So I'm going to duplicate this, put it down here. And this one is kind of like those, there's no bone structure holding this, right? So it's kind of like more muscle and fat area. So I can come over here and kind of like just shape a little, like this kid is not necessarily skinny or fat. He's kind of like average or whatever. So I'm just kind of like shaping it. We can give a little bit of a little belly, you know, how kids have that little funny belly sort of stuff. One important thing that I'm not doing here, but we all should be doing, is to look at the silhouette, okay? In general, when you're doing a very basic kid like this, like you know, with not a lot of crazy anatomy or anything like that, I like to call it the bean shape. So what's happening here, you can see, is that there is a bean shape going on like this. You see, a bean. Beans, by the way, are very important. You should probably try to eat every day because they have a lot of good stuff for you. So that's the bean shape. So I can go here and start pulling a little more. Now that I have all these 3 parts for the torso, it's easier for me to see if things are feeling the way it's supposed to feel. So back here, we kind of have this sort of like S curve like this, right, going on. So this is very important. You have your vertebrae, right? It comes down here and then it goes in and then it pops out. And then you have your tailbone that goes in like this. So this is very important. Another important thing is that we have our apex, and then depending on the type of body for your character, you kind of have this flat feeling and it goes in. Again, creating this bean shape. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to balance those things again. And from the front view, I'm feeling that this character, again, like I said, like I don't feel like he's gonna be particularly skinny or chubby or anything like that. So what I'm trying to do is just kind of make a squarish feeling, like it's gonna have here, like imagine his shoulder's gonna come out here, the pectoral muscles here, and then it, you know, kind of becomes a little like a blob like this. So I think my rib cage might be going too far, and yeah. All right, so no need to go too crazy. Again, we're gonna feel it, what we need. Any questions so far, what I'm doing here? One thing I like to do is that I like to give a little bit more life to the pose. So instead of being super straight like this, I like to create a little bit of a, like a dance a bit more. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to project this rib cage forward a little more. And then all of this is going to project. And then this is going to go back. So it's kind of almost like a C shape like this going up. So that's what we're doing here. Again, I like to feel my profile, see what's going on here. Can I feel that action going on? It's going forward like this. Maybe I need a bit even more. So I'm going to try that. Just move it up. And this feeling that I'm talking about, like, oh, how do I know if I have the feeling? Again, you got to observe a lot of your reference, observe what kind of things you like also, right? For me, I do like a little more personality on my default pose. Some people like to keep it very bland and simple because when you put the rig, that's when life is going to happen. But I like to give a little life to the pose by default, like that, One thing is I feel that this neck is a bit too angled, so I'm just going to make just a smidge straight like this. Yeah. And then I'm going to move everything forward a bit.
Letitia, we have a question from Vera, who says, thank you for this webinar series. I hope you will do a class for us someday. And her question is, how do you manage proportions? Sometimes I make the torso too long. How would you kind of help out a beginner?
That is a great question, Vera. What I'm doing here is keeping the pieces separate. It's what I like to do because it makes it easier for me. Let's say, oh, this is going to be super cartoony. He's going to have a very tiny body. What I can do is I can find these proportions here, and then I can very easily play with it. Like, oh, let me make a very small, thin rib cage. And then I'm going to come here and kind of match this shape in. And then I'm going to get this one and kind of do this. And now, okay, he has a much smaller body, you see? So that's kind of how I like to work. It's with different pieces I kind of like find it like a puzzle almost. Like if I have the different pieces, it makes it easier for me to play with it instead of having a big blob. Because if all of this was one shape, it will be this big blob, right? And then sometimes it's hard for you to know like where the rib cage starts, where it ends, and things like that. So that's the way I found to help myself kind of go a little faster, on that sense. Right now, for example, I feel like I want to make his body a bit smaller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale down everything a little bit. And it just makes a bit smaller body. And that's kind of how I do it, And again, I don't like to do things fast per se. I like to do things with intention, like really understanding what I'm doing. So again, like I go small movements. I don't go like abrupt movements most of the time. So, but some people, they do like to like, oh, okay, I'm going to change everything and do like a big movement like this. It's like, okay, now it's repeat. I like to go a bit slower and finding kind of slowly, it's just my taste. But yeah, keeping the separate pieces always helps me to play with proportions. That would be the short answer. Cool. Okay, so we have our torso. Let's start putting some arms and legs now. And I'm going to start with the legs. So normally, one important thing about anatomy also is that normally, again, I say normally because in cartoon, everything can be different, right? But the height from the top of your head to the end of your pelvis is the same to the end of your ankle, right? So this is equal to this. This is kind of like regular proportions for a human. So your whole head plus torso is going to be equal your whole leg length, starting from the end of the pelvic bone. So that's what we're going to do again, because we're doing a more naturalistic character. But depending on the style you're doing, you throw that on trash and just feel it, right? All right, so now that we did that, let's do some legs. And I love doing legs. Legs has so much character, and we're going to see a little bit about it. So I'm going to duplicate my sphere here. Scale down. And I'd like to make a little oval shape like this. Something like this. And you don't need to have symmetry on, so I'm going to turn it off actually, because we don't need symmetry. So that's kind of like what I'm doing, like here. And again, just something to think about legs also, beyond what I just drew. One thing also that is important is by right about here where the leg connects to the knee is the same distance to here, to the heel. So if you kind of get that line where we marked, right, for the pelvis, this is equal to this. This is very important, because if you're like, oh, I'm doing a very stylized thing, I'm not going to follow rules. If by some reason your top part of your leg is longer than your bottom part of the leg, what is going to happen is when your leg turns, it's going to be like this. You're going to have a foot here. And it's going to be very weird, right? It's like, this is your leg, which again, like, it's all game in cartoons, but this is something we don't mess with a lot, because you want your leg when it turns, like if my distance is from here to here to here, when your leg spins, it kind of like it's going to be almost the same, right? Same distance here, okay? So be careful with that, because we want to play with shapes, but you got to choose where to do those play times, I'll say. All right, so we have the shape here. I'm not going to do too much yet. I'm going to duplicate and put it below it to kind of do the other part of the leg, and I'm going to make just a little thinner. But one thing that I love to do is to shift like this to the back. Very easy, look, shift it. What that did to me is that I got for free my diagonal here, right? So that is amazing. Okay. One thing about the legs, let's talk about in profile just a little bit about the anatomy of the leg. Okay, here. Again, you have like your little shorts here, right? So the leg connects there. And we can see that there is a certain diagonal going on everywhere here, okay? We have the apex here on the biceps. This is the biceps of the leg, this muscle here, okay? And then you have a little apex down here on the diagonal, which is the quads, okay? Okay, and then it connects. Then back here, we have the gastrocnemius, which is this muscle here. And then you have the apex going on here. It goes down. And all this shape goes in. And what happens inside the shape? It's beautiful magic. It's this beautiful S here, you see, going on. This is beautiful S. If I put a point here and I push it down, you see that the leg is not all straight on the front. There's a big diagonal going in. And this is music. This is nature being art. Okay, I'm going to stop being a philosopher here. All right, so with that intention in mind, I'm going to emphasize that S. I'm going to push this back like this. It's a little flatter in the front, remember, a little flatter here. And the apex of the gastrocnemius is up here, and then it goes flat back in. Okay, so I'm doing very simple of that shape. All right, so we have that shape going on here. Beautiful. And you can even make it thinner like this. We're going to play a bit more, but this one is the opposite, right? Remember the S that goes like this. So this one, I'm going to emphasize the quads up here in the front. We have our biceps in the back here, and then it goes flatter here. So some people even say that there is a curve and a straight. There is a straight and a curve. This is when you see those very much simplified drawings. The legs are this curve, straight, and then you have straight, and then you have a curve. Okay. So when you see those pinup drawings of a very stylized pinup that's go like this, straight and curve, you kind of see that. All right, cool. So I'm going to connect, just try to connect this a little better to that kind of socket that we created. Okay. And again, the bicep is the diagonal. Then we have it here. Our knee is going to be right about here. Okay. And yeah, but we didn't do anything in the front view. But if we look at profile, we can start to feel like we have this C shape here. And then we have that curve shape here going on. And again, we can always emphasize more. So let's try to push a little more on the legs, for example. So I'm going to push this. I'm going to push this back a little more even and see what happens. Okay. So you can see that that shape is starting to get more emphasized. Okay. Cool. This might have some proportion issues, but we're going to fix it. All right. So let's talk about the legs in the front view. And if I put our air crochet here again, we can see that, again, we're going to talk diagonals throughout the whole body, right? So what happens here on this case is that we have diagonals like this, okay? So here on the side, the quad, this is one of the muscles of the quad, right? It has the apex right about here, and then it goes in. And then here we have this kind of like mark here, which this is a serraceous muscle. I don't know how to say serráceos in Portuguese, but it cuts like this, the beautiful one that it connects here on the crest of your what's the name of this? Your hip bone, and it goes down like this. Is very designing. So it connects here, goes down against the flow of things. Okay. So anyways, doesn't matter. Okay, so we have this apex, and then we have, normally is this one, which is kind of flat, and then it goes in sort of thing. Then we have this going in like so. And then the bottom here, we have this up right here, and then this down right here. Okay. And then it goes down. Again, like if you divide in 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of thing going on. All right. So with that said, what is important here? Remember, I told you guys about the trochanter head, which is like about, I don't know if I'm drawing the right place. I think I am, but it's about here like this, which is the femur going on here. And then this bone goes in. But if we think about in diagonals, okay, there is from the trochanter head, there's diagonal going in to make it here, okay? And this goes straight. So if you think about the leg in a very simple structure, it's not actually femur and then the other bone, I forgot the name. It's actually like this, goes in a little and then it goes out, goes in a little and then it goes out. So we gotta remember that, because if I put a line here, you can see that there is this distance here going on, right? It's not a straight line. Same thing here. If I put a line here, we have these distances going on. The negative space that everyone loves, right? So we got to think about those negative spaces and figure it out how to honor them. Cool. So what I'm going to do now is to block that. All right. So if you go back here to ZBrush, again, remember, we have those diagonals. So I'm going to move this in a little, very little, to create that diagonal. And then I'm going to take this whole shape and move in a bit more. And what I'm getting here, very simple, nuanced, is this going in like this, and then this coming out straight. All right. Again, we know the apex here is going to be higher up, and this one is a little lower, so I'm going to thin it out. When you talk about cartoons, a lot of times what happens is there's a straight line here, and then there is this shape, and then this shape going in. So let's think about that. So I'm going to keep it fairly straight inside, again, just for a little stylization. And again, the apex of the quads are up here, so I can push this in a little. And then for the bottom part of the leg, there's a certain angle going on as well. And we know that this area is going to be higher, this is going to be a bit lower, and then it goes thinner, super thin, right? Because there's more muscle and unboned kind of thing. Okay. We can make this a little lighter like this. Again, if you want to think stylized, you can keep this inner part almost straight, almost, and then this one has a little more curve to it. You know, you gotta think about how much stylization, if it works, if not. This here is gonna be our knee, so I'm just gonna pull a little shape here for the knee, just so we can kind of see what's going on with the knee. And yeah. One way to think is about, there's a word called interlocking shapes, right? It's almost like the interlock with each other. That's a good term. I think my upper leg is a bit too big, so I'm gonna scale a little bit less like this. And then I'm gonna move this, all this a bit higher. All right, so we did that, which is great. I think pull this a little more. You know, I feel like everything is a bit chunky, but that's all right. We're gonna work on it. And just get the feeling here of things. Now it's a good moment. If anyone has any questions, you can ask.
Yeah, so Vera's wondering, if we make a mistake, how do we decide what to fix immediately and what will be dealt with later on? I imagine if proportions are off, we have to fix them as we go. But if there's a weird bump or something that we make while sculpting, how do we decide there? Any tips?
Yeah, on this stage, you know, I would say like worry about proportions. Don't worry about too much if the shape is clean and beautiful. I mean, I love working clean, but you know, I'm not too concerned about it yet. I know I can do a cleanup pass and it's gonna be all right. So I would say like at this moment, focus about proportions and stylization. And that's already a lot for you to focus, you know, like it's a lot to deal with. So I wouldn't worry too much about if like, oh, if my mesh is super clean and things like that. Again, like I said, I always like to work clean. Right here, for example, I'm picking my shapes and pressing D, which is to add the dynamic subdivision. So I can see it a little cleaner, you see? Again, I'm not doing Control D, adding divisions. I'm just using the dynamic subdivision button to see it a bit smoother. So that's one way for you to see if there's any weird things that you model or whatever. Is that clear, Vera? I hope so. All right, so we have the shapes, right, for the leg. Let's give a little foot and mirror it. So for the foot, again, as like everything I've been doing, I'm gonna start from a sphere. I'm gonna duplicate, come down here, and scale down. One beautiful thing about the foot is we can use ZBrush to flatten a lot the foot. So I don't know if I show you guys this, but I'm gonna pretend I never did. But if you hold Control, you have your gizmo on. You hold Control and drag on any of the scale, this little rectangle, scale rectangles, and it start moving. You see that it starts cropping your geometry. This is a quick way to crop things instead of using other tools. So again, like I want to make the bottom of the foot flat. So I'm just going to hold Control and I'm going to move it up and kind of flattens half of it. And I have a half a sphere. And that's a very quick way to flatten things. Now I'm going to make a big shape like this sort of for the foot. Okay, looking from the front and move it to place. And one thing beautiful about the foot is that it has a very cool shape, which is this shape like this. It gets like, imagine one little sphere here, right? And then we have one bigger sphere here. And we're gonna make this connections like this, you know, simplest way to say it. It would be kind of like, I guess we could call it like a 9 like this, where you have like a small and then it comes here and then this one comes in like this. Again, it's very bean shape, which again, beans are very good for your health. So If I go here, again, I can start creating that shape. So I'm going to push this in, flatten this a little bit. Again, this sphere in the back is a bit smaller, so I'm trying to contain a little more. And this one, I'm gonna remember, this is going to be where the big toe is, and then the little fingers. So I'm going to make sure that this is the apex, right? The big toe, and then the rest goes down in like a diagonal like this. And then I'll push this in a bit more. And that's sort of the shape from the bottom. From the side, there's a very beautiful rhythm as well, which is you have kind of like a flat feeling back here. Okay. And then from the top, there's this beautiful interlocking diagonal that it creates like a big mess here. And then you have your toes, right? So in the simplest way, it would be like this. You have this going on. So let's try to add a little bit of that. So I'm going to push this up to kind of create that sort of flat here. And I'm going to push this up to create that ramp that connects to the foot. And don't worry about too much. If it's not getting completely flat back here, it's all right. But again, I'm doing that diagonal. And I'm adding a little bit of push here for the toes. Okay. So the other side is important to see as well. Let's look what's going on here. Interesting enough, on the leg, the only thing that changes the rule of the diagonal is this area, because what happens here is, remember, we had this diagonal from here to here, this diagonal from here to here, but in the foot, something different happens because this little head of the bone here, it's higher than the other one on the other side. So you have this. It's the opposite direction, okay? And what happens to that is that the mass of your foot, like all these tendons and stuff, is going to have that diagonal a little bit as well. So this is what I'm doing here, which is now I know that this bone here is going to be higher than this little head here, okay? And we don't have enough topology yet to define those bones, but you get the idea. But what I'm trying to do here is this diagonal going on like so, okay? Which is opposite to the other one. Now, I don't know if any of you has a problem with defining left and right and things like that. I do for some reason. I do have trouble with left and right. It's like my brain never learns really what is left, what is right. The same thing with this damn diagonal. Sometimes I'm like, is it like this? Is it like this? Because I don't know, my brain cannot process for some reason. So one thing I know is independent of the diagonal, I need to check every time for anatomy, is that the foot has inverted shape. That's all I wanted to say. All right, so I'm flattening this side here, you see. I'm doing a little, I'm even smoothing a little to kind of, again, create almost this like triangular shape, shifted triangle, right? Sort of thing. And someone might ask, why? How do you know if the foot is the right size, right? And my answer to you is, you gotta feel it. You gotta feel it. You gotta look at reference. And one thing that helps, we don't have arms yet, but the foot has an interesting relationship with the arms, which I can talk about it when we get to the arms. For now, we don't have it. So for now, I'm just gonna feel it, all right? So that's kind of like what we got. One thing I like to do is to keep this a little more straighted. Again, like this inner side, I try to keep a bit more straight. And see what happens. So for the foot, I'm going to put the color in. I'm going to press D. And now we can mirror it just to see what's happening. Because sometimes I might make the legs too kind of like, we can open a little the legs to kind of give a more naturalistic feeling and such. So let's mirror to see what happens. So I'm going to go every subtool and I'm going to mirror it. Okay. So I'm going to show you guys my UI just in a second. But if I press L, I'm going to explain L on my UI. There's a bunch of buttons that I love that I use all the time. And one of them is the mirror button. So if I press mirror, it's going to ask, do you want to mirror an X, yada, yada, whatever it says here is right. So I just say, okay, now it's going to mirror. Then I'm going to go to the next subtool. Remember, I'll click, you go to the next one. I'm going to press L again, same mirror, boop. And then I'm going to go to the foot, press L, mirror, boop. Okay. And that is our leggies. Trying to see if there's any weird feeling going on. I think this could go in a little more. Thinking out loud now, just see how can I again connect, interlock those shapes that they feel somehow connected, even though they're not yet. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, that looks good. I'm gonna give him just a bit more booty here. Right. Yeah, he has some nice thick legs, which remember you got to turn on symmetry again on the shapes, just so you know. Sometimes I like to move the feet just a bit in more. And now it's that part that because I have the whole of the legs, it's easier for me to judge what's going on. So for example, I can emphasize that diagonal a bit more. I'm just going to move this whole part here in a bit and move this in to kind of like force that diagonal. Just looking better now. One thing is important to check always is if from here to here to here, it's kind of the same distance. Just seems like it is. And that is important. Why? Because if I had my pivot point here where the knee is, and I get this and this, it goes like perfect from this area to this area. They connect. And that is magical. So it seems like we have a good. Cool. All right. Any questions? I'm going to just measure here the amount of heads just so you can feel it.
Looks like we're good on the questions front. We are on the hour though, so Leticia, so it's up to yourself. We can keep going, or if you want a 10-minute break, just let us know.
Okay. One last thing. You can see here that this is larger than this, right? From the pelvis to the top of the head to the, again, it doesn't need to be perfect math science, but I do like to play a little more. So I might push my pelvis up a little more just to give a bit more leg room here. And hopefully that would, let's check it out. So from here to here, kind of. And then from here to here. Yeah, it's still pretty big, see? So one thing we can do is just scale the legs up as well a little bit. So what we can do, I don't think I explained this before, but if we go to the leg and you put your gizmo where you want, you hold Alt and click to move the gizmo, right? Put what I want. There is this weird icon here, which ZBrush called the Pixar box, the pizza box. I don't know. They say that it looks like a pizza box. I don't get it. But if you click on it, you see there is a stack of pizza boxes now. And that means that you can scale things with more objects than one. You can scale more subtools together instead of just scaling your own subtool. So if I hold Control Shift and clean it, you see that everything is kind of like with this little parallel line. That means that nothing is going to go to scale. So Control Shift, click, you can toggle between everything is going to get scaled, nothing's going to get scaled. And then with Control Shift, you click the objects you want to scale. So doop, doop, doop. Now I can scale just the leg. Isn't that wonderful? So now I'm just going to scale up the leg a little more, kind of like this. And I can measure again, sort of like this is looking a bit better. Maybe I'll scale just a smidge more. I can move in as well all together. Let's see. Yep, that's feeling a bit more natural. I know we're going to take a break, but if I do this and then I do this now, Still a bit bigger here, but a little more balanced. So I'll leave it as it is. Cool. All right, now it's time for a break.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Set a timer for 10 minutes.
I'll be back in a second. If everyone has any questions about other things, I'll be back. I'm just gonna get some more water.
Fantastic. See you soon, folks.
Very soon. Hey, bro. I'm going to put on the chat the link for the Echo Shade from Raphael. So someone click it and see if it's working, just to be sure. I don't know if anyone's here. It works. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Cool. That's a good one. Raphael is a master in anatomy, so I trust whatever he put in that in 3D, it's true. So, you know, because you see some that look good, but they might not have the correct information going on. So, yeah, if you guys have any questions about anything else, not for what we're doing, so we can wait the 10 minutes, but if anything else, I'm here. And one thing I would suggest for anyone that's here is to really try to do it, you know, because like there's so much information that our brain can retain without us putting into practice, without us doing it. And, you know, it's funny because like I took a long time to learn that because I was someone that it would just sit and watch videos all the time. But if you don't take the time to solidify the content that you learn, it really doesn't stay in your brain. And I'm sure all of you already went through that. So if you get a chance, even if it's like, oh, I'm just going to do a leg, or I'm just going to focus on the head now, whatever it is that if you have time or not, really try to put into practice what we're talking here, so you can solidify that information. All right, this is a question from Vera. Is there a method of knowing how much to overlap the two subtools? I don't know if there's a method, but like it's a good way is to check the silhouette box on the top left to see if it's feeling like they're actually interlocking well, you know? That's one way I do it. Yeah. Lou said, is there a model like that one, but with female anatomy? That's a good question. I don't know if Raphael per se, this artist, did a female one, but I know there are female accouchés for sure. I might have to do a little research to find a good one for you guys. Yeah. Okay. Nanda said, how can you fix when the geometry in the face is less clean? Do you remesh the geometry? Yes, Nanda, we're gonna do that today, hopefully. So we're gonna remesh everything, the body, the head, everything together. So I will show a little bit about that, okay? Vera said, in normal drawing, I often don't overlap enough. Yeah, if you look at the masters like Lankeen, you know, Eric Goldberg, they overlap a lot, those shapes. Like they all feel like one big swoop of things. It's just insane, you know. And I agree with this hard. Like sometimes I have a hard time doing that flowness feeling as well. Then Jara said, hi, with presenting a character design solution, when do you feel comfortable with presenting a preview? Would you hurry to test the direction or pace and present when complete happy with it? As some clients doesn't necessarily understand WEAP, would you suggest skipping the early presentations basically? Yeah, you gotta feel the kind of artist, the kind of clients you have. Like when you're working in a company like I am at Disney, like the artists, they understand very well 3D and the process that happens in 3D. So I can show things super early. But I had in the past situations where the clients have no clue what they're looking at and they just see a blob and they're like, so depending on the client, yes, I would hold a beat and make sure that I have I'm like 80% there to show something, where when you have good clients that understand shapes, you might have like 50% there and is a good time to show things already, you know. Vera said, ZBrush Core, the free version, doesn't allow for subtools. So I will try 3D Coat. Do you know that program? Well, I didn't know ZBrush Core didn't have subtools. That's very interesting. I mean, I never played much with the ZBrush Core. I do know 3D Coat. Like I used 3D Coat mostly for painting in the past, not so much anymore. But it is a great program. Yes, Blender would be my top choice compared to ZBrush, just because Blender has very good sculpting tools as well. 3D Coat actually has very good sculpting tools, but overall, I would say Blender is a better package for 3D in general. So if you want to invest your time on some software, I will go to Blender. Yeah.
Catherine has a question as well. Letitia, she's saying, hi Letitia, I'm using Nomad Sculpt instead of ZBrush. Can I follow all of your upcoming webinars with this software?
I've been using Nomad, like I started using a few weeks ago, just for curiosity, and it's so fun. And I was talking about this actually with John just now, like the feeling of the brushes is a bit different than ZBrush, so I'm getting used to it, but you can do absolutely everything that I'm doing, you can do in Nomad. Like you can duplicate the subtools, you can move around, everything that I'm doing really, you can do in Nomad, like no problem. Maybe on the next break, I can get my iPad just to show, like I was doing a Bobby shoe concept in Nomad just for fun, just kind of learn the program. And I was very surprised how powerful it is, being very honest. Daria said, congrats on the strange world. Yay. Thank you. Ah, yeah, it's a ride. It's a ride. Is it time, John?
As of this minute exactly, Letitia, the
All
time
right.
is yours. Take it away.
All right, let's go back to our body. So I'm going to share my screen again. Okay. Whoops. Yeah. So this is our boy. That's great. Yeah. He might be feeling a little older than I want. So one thing now that I show you guys how to use the gizmo with the pizza box thingy. What we can do now is to make him smaller. We can take the torso and the legs and scale down. So Control Shift, if I click on this, doop, 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 now I can get the torso and legs and just scale down a little more to make him feel a bit smaller. And what I'm thinking, I think 1, 2, 3, 4.5, I was thinking. So let's check it out. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4.5. So yeah, we're pretty much where I was thinking. Yeah, with this scale now, I think we're doing better, which is nice. Yay. Remember, this silhouette window is your friend. You want to make sure that it's working. Your shapes are feeling well and working. I still feel like the neck could go a bit straighter. I have a tendency to make the neck very diagonal. It's just the problem I have. So I'm just going to make sure that I have it a little straighter, which is nice. All right, let's give it some arms. It's always good to save. Let's save it. And let's give it some arms. So the arm structure, let's take a look at a beautiful crochet here. I want the other arm. Well, this is fine. Okay, so what happens here is, if we think about our rib cage here, which is this, right? We have this cut here. So we have this apex, this goes in, yada, yada, all good. You can see that the pectoral muscle here, it's sitting, and if you think about it in a very simple way, we have this, which is a pentagon, you see? So the simplest thing you can think of is the pectoral muscles as a pentagon. But very important diagonal on the body here is this one. And that's why is that? Because the shoulder lays on the shape. The shoulder lays on the shape, you see? So some people make a mistake of doing what? They have this, and then they put the shoulder outside like this. Again, it's not interlocking, you see? So if we do this, we're interlocking the shape into this simple shape here. All right, so this is very like a big mistake that some people do, is not to lay down the structure of the shoulder to the pectoral muscle. Cool. And if you see this side with the structure of more bone structure, you can see that there is this diagonal here. So the shoulder muscle, the deltoid, lays on it, you see? It doesn't just like flat and then the shoulder comes out. Be careful with that, all right? Another thing about the arm that's beautiful is that we have this laying on the shoulder here. The pectoral muscles, all the fibers from the clavicle to the sternum, they all flow in a beautiful way to connect under the shoulder into the bone, the radius, right? Forgot the name. Yeah, down here. Okay, so there's this beautiful flow of structure here going on. Right, that's all good. Now let's think about the pectoral muscle, the deltoid. So it has this very simple shape, like I said, it lays down a shape here, right? And then in theory, this bone here, right? This bone, if you divide in half, normally that's where these fibers of the pectoral muscles connect. But because we have skin and fat, yada, yada, this ends up feeling a bit more flat because we're going to have all the meat going on here. And we'll talk about that soon. All right, let's go back to 3D and then we go back and forth. I don't want to spend too much time here. But the important thing is we have that diagonal already going on here. See, or diagonal. So we're going to lay our deltoid, our shoulder, into that shape. I'm going to duplicate, make sure that I turn off symmetry, and we're going to make a little shoulder shape going on. Okay. So I'm going to talk about some of that shape. We know that is a little like this, right? I like to call it a little raindrop. So we have this little upside down raindrop going on like this. See? And then when you look on the side, is also upside down raindrop like this. See? So go back. Okay. So let's shape this a little like this. I'm going to keep his arms open like 45 degrees, kind of. This is what we call the A pose. There's a T pose when you keep your arms completely straight out. There's the A pose when your arms are 45 degrees out. All right, so again, let's do that little drop of rain here. So it gets thinner in the bottom and then thicker on the top, like so. And then on the profile, same thing. Goes thin here. Something like this for now. All right. It's kind of our shoulder. We can make a bit longer. This. We'll see. And you see me zooming out a lot. Again, is because I'm trying to get the feeling of the whole. If I'm too close all the time, it's very hard to understand the balance of this shape with the rest of the body. So that's one thing you should do all the time, is just zoom out, zoom out. All right, cool. Okay, so let's go to the arms. I'm going to take the sphere again, Control-Shift-D. I'm going to duplicate, turn off symmetry, and I'm going to make a little oval shape like this. Same thing we did with the legs, they're similar. Let's do a little shape. And I'm making it smaller because I want my arms not to be super thick or anything. And I'm going to place it right under. Remember, the key word is interlocking shapes. So it's going to be right under the shoulder here. Okay. And yep, that's that. And it's very thick, so I'm just going to make a bit thinner overall. Right under here. Okay. I'm going to move this up a bit, and I'm going to move the shoulder a little up as well. Then again, Control-Shift-D, I can duplicate, push it down here. One thing I love, just like the legs, remember that we moved this leg here, this piece back a little to create that diagonal. For the arms, there's a trick for that too, but you move up because the arm is just a little bit, you see, but the arm diagonal is a bit more like this. So that's why I did that. Cool, right? So let's shape this stuff a little better. Okay, so with my shoulder, again, I'm going to make sure that, you know, he's not super muscular or anything like that. So I'm not going to make sure that it's not super bulging on the silhouette. We don't have yet the trapezius muscle, so it's kind of weird if you look on the silhouette here, but we're going to add some trapezius just now. All right, so we have our shoulder is laying on my shape. That's great. The arm comes below the shoulder. Okay, so you gotta do this locking feeling. The same thing that we did here, the lock feeling. You gotta do the lock in there. And then for the arms, we're gonna keep it kind of like a tapering shape almost for this top part of the arm. We're gonna do a little of this simplified taper shape like this, a little thicker on the top, a little thinner in the bottom. Okay. There is some diagonals going on, but we're not going to see so much on someone like his age. And then for the lower arm, in a lot of times in cartoons, they keep this sort of like flowing like this, which here is a little more straight, and here you have this sort of S curve going on. if we look at our air crochet here, we can see some of that stuff going on. So you have this sort of like taper going down like this. You have our diagonal. This is coming underneath the shape of the shoulder. And then you have this bigger mass here, which is a muscle that's called brachioradialis. So there is the radialis muscle here. And then this one that comes out is the brachioradialis, which connects from the top here, and then it comes down. So it creates this mass. And then again, diagonals going on. And then here you can think of it almost like a flat shape here, a little square. Looking from the front view, again, same thing, like we have that mass here. And then if you're strong, you're gonna have a little more here and then a flat feeling here. Or sometimes you just make completely flat. It's all in the nuances, right? So what I'm gonna do here, looking from the front, again, I'm gonna give that brachioradialis volume, and then I'm gonna flat a little more this area. And then all of this, just a little bit of volume here, but all of this, I'm gonna make it flatter. So it's almost like a little box that connects here. From the side, very important thing as well. I can see some errors. This needs to go back a bit. But here, most of you know this, but then we have the biceps and the triceps in the back, right? And that creates this diagram. So the biceps comes kind of flat and then turns. The triceps comes a bit bulgy and then goes in for the tendon. There's a tendon here, okay? So I'm going to move this in a bit. The most important thing is create a what's the word? Taper shape. And here we actually, if you look on your own arm, this area is quite flat and this area does a little bulging like this. It's very flat area in the front of the arm. So I'm going to move it. I'm going to flatten this a little more. Very flat. And then we can have a bulge here. And then again, go back to the little box. Imagine that 1/3 of this arm is just a little box like this. You see? So that's what I'm trying to do. Any questions on that so far? Again, like I don't want him to feel muscle, guys. So I'm talking about all this stuff, but we're gonna have to blend the nuances and all. On the back, one thing I like to do is to add the elbow. So I'm just pushing a little shape, just like we did with the knee. I'm just pushing a little shape here for now, just to remember that the elbow exists, nothing crazy. And I think my arm is way too thick. So I'm just gonna thinner every piece a little bit, including the shoulder. One interesting thing about the shoulder, the arms actually, is like, imagine like a guy that's like super ripped, right? One funny thing is that your shoulder is always going to be the thickest part on the side view. So even if you have like ginormous biceps and triceps, your shoulder is going to be the farthest point on that body. So be careful if you're doing like a very strong person and you keep the shoulders small, but then the biceps are very big. That doesn't work in nature, you know. All right, here I'm gonna make it thinner again. Like I don't want him with like super thick arms or anything. So again, like looking at the silhouette, just making sure that I'm feeling that balance going on. And one thing about the arms, let me paint the color. I'm gonna fill the colors in here for the arms. One thing about the arms is that you have your bone here and the rotation of this bone goes to the end of your pelvic area. So it's arch, right? If I rotate this down, it's supposed to touch the end of the pelvis. Let's see that on the crochet here. So here we go. So if I get the rotation from the bone here until the wrist, it should go to the bottom of the pelvis here, okay? So that's how you measure normally. And again, from this to here, it's equal, just like the leg. So you got to be careful, or else when you turn your arm up, it's not going to be perfect turn. Okay. So if I rotate now, and one way to do that very easily is to use the pizza box, right? So I'm going to get the pizza box on. I'm gonna Control Shift, I'm gonna click and click again just to make everything grayed out. And then Control Shift click, doop, doop, doop. I get all my shapes, and then I can push this down. And what we can see is that it's not good. We still have some shape to go. No problem. We can just scale them all together using the pizza box. So I'm just going to scale up a little the arm. 2, 2. And now if I rotate, I'm getting a bit closer. So I'm just going to scale up a bit more. There you go. It's pretty close now. So that's much more better. Much more better. That's weird, but you guys get it. We can also scale everything to make a bit thinner all together, which is nice. Make a bit thinner arms like this. One thing that I always do wrong is to end this curve a bit sooner. Like I give too much curvature, so I'm just gonna flatten this a little more. And this is interesting. The more you sculpt, the more you're gonna notice some tendencies you have to make things in a certain way. So you gotta that's why you gotta model with intention, because that's the only way you're gonna notice your tendencies and what you need to change to improve, you know? So on the arms, I know that I have this tendency to keep things way too like this, where it's much more like there's a curvature here and then it starts flattening pretty fast. So that's what I'm trying to do here, to break my tendencies. All right, so now let's check if the relationships are correct. If again, like if I get from the bone until here, it should be the same. So this one is feeling just a smidge longer. So what I'm gonna do is to make, since we have a little room, I'm just gonna make this a little longer like this. Okay. Any questions so far on this? Everyone's good?
Yeah, one from Vera, just asking, so when we make the initial shapes, they're not the right length from the start because you have to take into account that you may have to insert one into the other. So I guess it's just a question of like, you've just got to do it to then kind of, you know, there's a lot of pull and push and pull.
Yeah. There's a lot of push and pull that you got to do, and that's all right. Again, that's why I like to keep things separate, because I feel like I have more control instead of, if all of this was just a blob that I was trying to sculpt, it's a bit harder to manage. So yeah, that's why I keep things separate, to kind of have that level of control. Yeah. All right, so we have that. I'm going to mirror it. Well, for the hand, okay. So for the hand, I'm going to give you guys a hand that it's a very simple block out. And why am I giving that? Because hands, I could do a whole 3 hour just on hands. And we're going to talk about important things on the hands, but just for the sake of time, I'm going to give you guys a very, again, like a very basic block out of a hand that, so let me import here just so you all can see. Import. And this is, I'm going to give you all on the Discord channel, I think. So, but you can see that it's a kid's hand. And it's a very simple block out that I made. Again, like it's just squares here. You see, like just very, very basic. And with this hand, you can do any shape of hand that you want, right? So it's just a little cutesy hand, very simple. It's not like super perfect topology. You can see that's very disorganized. But again, this is for us to viz dev hands. It's not like a final model or anything like that. So it's just a base mesh to start from. And with this hands here, I'm going to import to my scene. And I'm going to step back a bit because I need to show you guys how to bring this to ZBrush, right? I'm going to delete for now. And what I like to do when I want to import something, this format of this hands is a file called OBJ, which is a very common 3D format file. And the way to import in ZBrush, what I like to do is I go to a star and I click on the star here. It's always going to be a star up here for you, okay? So I'm going to click on my star, and I'm going to say import up here. And I choose whatever I want to import. Great. That's that. And that's all you need to do. But for me to add this to my scene, because this is in a different scene, right? We have this one, and then we have my hands here. What you got to do to import to this scene, very easy. You go here on the subtool panel, and you're going to say insert. And it's going to, now that we imported our hands, it's going to be here, base hands. So I just click it, and I'm going to have my hands, and it might be ginormous. And I did this on purpose because I wanted you guys to suffer. That's a joke, but it is important to see situations that things are going to happen. Like you might import a model and the scale is completely different. So remember that. So not to worry, you just go to the hands here and then you scale down and you bring it back to where it's supposed to be. Okay. So I'm going to turn on symmetry. I'm going to scale down my hands. Oops. And I can place it here. And, you know, gotta feel the feels of your hands. I'm gonna place it here. And you can see that this yellow part, I'm kind of like connecting, again, interlocking the shape to the arm. So that's what I'm doing. And if I turn off wireframe, you can kind of feel what's going on here. And it's feeling decent. I'm going to feel with our color. And now let's mirror some stuff. So I'm going to go to the shoulder. I'm going to press L, mirror, okay. I'm going to go to the arms, L, mirror, okay. If this happens for some reason, like you paint it black, don't worry, just paint it back to the skin shade. I don't know why that happens sometimes, but you see. So I just clean mask and then paint it back again. And now we have our body. The only thing we're missing, which is very, very, very important, is the trapezius muscle, because the trapezius muscle, it's going to change this silhouette here that's doing whoop, 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 some weird stuff. We don't want that, right? That's very weird. So the trapezius muscle is a beautiful muscle that comes from behind our neck. So here you can see that it's this muscle here that connects on the crest here of the back of the skull. And then it comes all the way, connects to the shoulder, and it connects here in the back, like so. And the profile, if we look at a profile view, is this one. So it's going to be, again, on the crest here, but it goes in a diagonal like this, you see? So it creates this volume here, which is very nice, and does something like this. So here, if you think about, that's the cylinder of the neck that we have. We're missing this piece. We have this one, right? We need this piece laying on top of it to create what? If we look on the front view, look at how cool. So the shape we have right now, again, is that cylinder here, right? But we need this muscle laying here and creating this silhouette change. If we don't have it, we don't see it, right? It becomes like this weird thing. So with that said, we're going to get a sphere, duplicate, and we're going to make a very thin shape, put it in the back here, and I'm going to shape it. So you don't need to go crazy. Like, we don't need to make sure that it's connected here and doing this and that. I'm just going to make sure that it is laying on here on the shoulder, right? I'm going to have that angle, smooth a little bit. Again, like it connects here on the side, and it kind of goes down here. It's going to follow the shape of your neck, but it needs to connect on the shoulder right here. So we're starting to block that shape. Starting to feel like there was a cylinder, and now this piece is laid like so. Can you guys feel it? So we do that shape, connecting. We can even push it up if you want, connect with the neck a little better, but we need to connect it to the shoulder, okay? And again, it needs to invade this area here. Looking from the front, wow, this is very strong. So again, I just looking at the silhouette now. Look what's going on, right? Going on like this, which is nice. So I feel like now we might need to move the whole head up because it's feeling a bit, or maybe we can move the trapezius muscle a little better. Just trying to feel it here. The anatomy works. Okay, yeah, I might want to move the head up a bit more. So again, I'm gonna use the pizza box. Click, drag everything, and then I'm gonna select eyes, head, and just move it up a bit more, like this, just to give it a little more room. Yeah, that's more balanced. Let me put the collar on my trapezius here. I'm just smoothing things, pressing D, okay? And looking at the silhouette, let's see what's going on. That's much better. Maybe our shoulder has a bit more, too much volume. So I'm just gonna flatten a little more here. And maybe it's too wide as well. And I think that is that. I'm gonna give a little more connection here to kind of flow one simple line, you see. I'm trying to find that one simple line that comes from the neck. One thing that is important here that's going on wrong is that we have this, the digastric plane, but then it's doing some weird bulging here. So we got to fix that. So now that we have all the parts, again, is the time to start fixing, connecting everything, making sense of everything that you made, okay? So that's what I'm trying to do now, to make sense of it all. And one thing that I normally don't do it as a separate object, but I can show you all, like a lot of people like to do that, but I'm just, again, like now I'm trying to create a certain flow of things connecting, okay? Now it's that time where I really like to take my time and feel the design, like maybe his belly will go lower like this, and give a little more. This is when you have all the pieces, the fun part, really, because now you can play with them and feel it. So one thing I like to do just for fun also is to paint the shorts, this little bit here, a different color, just for fun. So I can give him, like, I don't know, red shorts here, like something like this. Wait, am I painting? No. I'll paint. What the hell? Oops. Wait, I'm gonna get red shorts. Try to paint. Okay, not sure why it's not painting, but should. Interesting. Yeah. All right. Well, I can't paint for some reason, so we're not gonna paint. But this is sort of like what the moment now is to massage this. You're not gonna dynamesh everything at once and move on with your life. Now I'm gonna massage and make sure that the things are connecting properly. There is a certain flow and everything is beautiful in life. You know, that's kind of the moment to do that. Was there a question?
Looks like we're good for the minute.
Okay.
How are you holding up? Are you
I'm good.
Is the paint recovered? What's happened?
Going on? Let me try to paint a different thing just to see. Bill. Oh, okay. Now it's back. So yeah, so it's back. So I like to paint like his little shorts, kind of like a different color just for fun. So it looks like he's wearing a swimsuit or something. I find it fun. Yeah. Now I'm just, again, like, this is the moment where I go about and see if my shapes are feeling correct. Maybe my hands are too big. You know, now is the time to massage and find proportions on things. And don't don't underestimate the power of taking time on this stage and really, really figure it out, connect the shapes, make sure that they're feeling right, because this will make your life so much easier when you get to connect all of it together again, you know. Yeah. All right. Sometimes I do put the pectoral muscles on it. Sometimes I don't. I'm gonna show it because if you're making a female character, this is how you would do the breast. So I'll get the sphere, and then I'm gonna move it down here to the side. And if it is for this boy for now, not well, let me show for female first. So for a female, you're gonna get this sphere here, and you're gonna put where the balance of the shape would be, right? And say something like this. She's gonna have a small breasts like this, but obviously we know that it's not first a perfect sphere, second. So the breast on a female is very much so like a drop, right? You have this shape here laying, and this volume is gonna do like a drop like this, okay? So this is kind of like how we do for cartoons. Obviously, it doesn't stay flat. It kind of invades this area here. So it would be like a drop like this. So what we can do is do just that. So we can take this shape and push it up and then kind of make a little drop like this. Okay. And then looking from the front, we can just connect like this. And again, this area tends to be quite flat, and then it comes out. So it would be something like this if your character had small breasts. Okay, and if I mirror, which is very important, right? Also, the breast normally does not point forward; it points diagonally because the rib cage it's a curve, so it sits in a diagonal. It doesn't sit looking forward, right? That's an important thing as well. So, and then if I mirror, just so you all can see, it would be something like this. And it obviously depends on the size and the shapes of things, but you would have to work a little to find that shape. Cool. And this will probably be a bit lower as well. Something like that. I'm trying to make balance here with his body. But in this case, he does not have those breasts. So what we can do is very easy, is to do that pentagon, right? So here's the rib cage, and then we're gonna have flat. We're gonna have this, this, and this, which is kind of the shape we're gonna do. And okay, so if I get this, I can just create the pentagon shape. So I'm gonna move this to touch a little. This. And again, remember the diagonals. There's a certain diagonal here. There's the diagonal where it sits. And then we're gonna do this sort of shape. I'm just smoothing so we can find it. And again, look at how weird. What happens here is that we have the sternum bone, and it's kind of like a flat surface, and then it goes in. It creates that curve. So what we're gonna do here is that we have that flat surface. That's great. And then this is gonna turn, right? Like this. To connect, right? This will connect inside here on the bone, basically, right? Like this. So trying to find that balance here. Pentagon shape. It would be something like this. But like I said, I normally just keep the shape without it, and then I sculpt a little bit later when I connect everything together. I normally don't do this, but you could, I guess, if you want to do it. But it would be something like this. And again, I'm just trying to smooth it out to make it look decent. Yeah, it doesn't look bad. maybe I can keep it. All right. Here again, like interlocking shapes. So I want to make sure that this is a simple line connecting here. And then we have our pectoral muscles, which on a kid is quite, a skinny kid like him is quite thin. So I'm not going to give too much volume. Okay. Yeah, something like that. One thing that is important is the wings. I call wings, but you know, the latissium maximus, whatever it's called, this thing. But this is the lat, right? Is this muscle here that creates this shape. And what is important about this muscle is that it breaks silhouette of like this area. And in our character, if you notice, we have this curve going in, but because of the lats, it's supposed to come out a little more. It's supposed to be more like this shape, see? So what I like to do is just to really, I don't need to make a new shape. I just take this shape and make it a little wider on the top like this. And then that's about it, really. Don't need to go crazy, you know? If you want to, you can. You know, there's some people that love making like all the little shapes and stuff. It's fun to learn and study. It's not completely necessary, you know? So one thing that happens also here is that we have a rib cage, right? And then we have the frontal muscles, which is all this stuff here. And then here on the side, we have the oblique, which is a muscle that creates sometimes if you have what they call the love handle, right? It's a little bit of that fat here. So what we can do is looking from the front, we can keep this shape a bit straighter. And then when it gets down here, we just give a little bit of that oblique volume. You see that I'm doing a very basic kind of shape like this. And that is just enough because again, this is a kid. He's not like a bodybuilder or anything like that. So that's why I'm moving things and making it feel connected. And this takes time, guys. Do not jump forward too much. Take your time. This is where the belly is going to be. We got to make sure that we have those frontal muscles here going on. My rib cage needs to go down a little more like this. That diagonal going on. So play with it, have fun, study anatomy, just doing that. You're gonna learn so much on this stage, okay? Without having to sculpt anything, just kind of doing this block out. I think comparing to his arms, his legs are feeling a bit thick. So I'm just gonna make a bit thinner, like this. A little thinner on the profile as well. Just a smidge. All right, so now that I did that, I gotta make sure I connect things properly. Maybe this shape can go up a little more, like this. So you can see that it's a lot of back and forth movement now of cleaning those shapes and making sure that you have proper flow to things. There's a good moment to pause and see if anyone has any questions.
Good for questions at the minute, but folks, if you do have any, please feel free to just pop them in the Q&A on the bottom left-hand side, or if you want to ask them live, then just go to the bottom right-hand side of your screen, click raise hand, and you'll be able to ask Letitia live.
Awesome. One thing that I'm noticing here on my silhouette, if we make this big, is that my torso is a little bit of a taper going like this, where it feels like he's a bit heavier on the top. I do not want that. I want him to feel a little weak and frail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pizza box again, and I'm going to take all the arms and move in a little more. So we can get a little less top heavy kind of feeling. I think now it feels a bit better. Still a little bit, but maybe let's move a smidge more. That was too much. Yeah. I think that's good. Okay, so we could Dynamesh all of this together now and start working. Or if you guys prefer, we could do a quick block out for the hair to kind of like, you know, the hair, as you all probably know, it's as important as everything else. The hair, it changes a lot, the character, who they are. So we might want to do a little quick block out for the hair. All right, I see some yes for the hair, so let's do that. Very funny way of doing hair. What I like to do is kind of almost do a very, very short hair first, just to kind of get the feelings of the character. And then I start adding the pieces of hair. So I'm going to show you guys that. And again, always starting from a sphere. So I'm going to Control-Shift-D this here, move it down. And I'm going to make the same color as the brows for now, or maybe a little lighter than the brows. And color it. Just going to make a little brighter, just because it's easier to see shapes when you have a brighter color for the hair. And like I said, I'm going to move this down and basically make like, supposedly he has very short hair for now. So what happens is if you have short hair, right, that there's a certain balance that happens, that you have like a shape like this and then it goes down. Let's actually, before I'm telling things, let's just look at it, right? So if I go here and I just to the side here, let's look at like boy with short hair. See if it's gonna help us. Okay, not looking bad. Let's see, I'm looking for something more like this. It's very, you can see the shape of the hairline. This one is good too. We can kind of see that there is a certain way that the hair grows, right? There is a certain shape here that it goes in a little bit and then it comes out and it creates this sort of shape like so, okay? You can see here as well, like it goes in and then the hair comes out and then it does this shape. So this is very common for all of us, women, men, whatever it is. So that's what I'm going to try to do here. We have that inner shape going out here. And then we have going in a bit, what people call the widow's peak, I think. And then it comes out again and it goes in a ton to go to the side. Something like this. One thing is that I'm going to give a little more shape here in the back to create a little more volume overall. But this would be his hair if he had a very short hair, let's say, you know. So we would have here a little side. And we can give a little volume just for fun. So I'm going to take some here in the back. And just trying, again, thinking on the design way, how the hair would work. Short hair. Okay, something like that. Now he has some very, very short hair, which is how I normally like to start hair. Just to kind of get a feeling. You can give a little more volume here, push this down a little. And that's looking pretty decent. Cool. So with this hair for now, we're going to continue working the hair. But this is basically what I like to do before I start blending, just to get a feeling again. And I think because he's a kid, he doesn't need to have so much of that shape going in so much. Maybe a little more hair needs to come out like this. I think that's more balanced. All right. And again, look at your references. Okay. But he's going to have this little cutesy short hair. But before we continue, I actually want to combine everything into one mesh, because right now we have a ton of different mesh, all going on. And this is a very important step. I'm sure a lot of you wants to know how to go about. So I'm going to save this version. Always save a version before you merge of meshes because you might regret with something. And let's connect. So the way we're going to go about is that ZBrush has two tools that it's very important. One is called Dynamesh, and one is called ZBrush. Okay, these are two different buttons. Dynamesh, what it does to our mesh, it's going to combine everything into a Dynamesh, meaning instead of having perfect squares, polygons, it's going to try to combine things using triangles to keep the shape of our mesh the closest possible as it is, combining everything together, okay? So Dynamesh is used when you want to merge pieces together into one. ZBrush is an amazing tool that tries to create a flow to our topology, okay? It tries to create things a little more as it would be if we're using this topology for animation, okay? So if we look at here, our head is still using very bad topology, see? What it means is there's no flow going on. There's no flow. Like normally, the flow of a mesh for animation, you want it to flow similar to how the muscles of the face are. So we have the orbicular of the face, of the eyes. We have the orbicular of the mouth. We have the nasolabial fold. So in general, your topology for animation needs to flow in the way of the muscles of the face, because when you animate things, you want those animations to work just like a human face would, right? So if we look here at a face topology, not topology, but a face anatomy, you can see there's a certain things that happen here, so we can make some expressions. So like I said, we have the orbicular of the eyes. We have the orbicular of the mouth. We have, remember the zygomatic pole? We have the zygomatic bone here, and then we have this zygomatic major. We have the Rizzoli's muscle, which is this little one here, and the depressors. And these three muscles together connecting to the orbicular of the mouth, they are gonna make us be able to pull it and smile, or push it down, or do whatever we want. Those three muscles are very important for the motion of the mouth. Interesting thing, there's no bone here, right? So they're floating on shape, and that's why we can do so many expressions in the mouth, because it's connecting muscle to muscle. There's no bone, so they're connecting muscle to muscle, so they can flow a lot, do a lot of flow. Okay, so when we're doing our topology right now, we don't have any of that going on, so it's going to be very hard to animate this. But ZBrush has a thing called ZBrush, which is going to try to create certain flows that's going to help us to pose our character. Let's go one step at a time. So what I said is we're going to do a Dynamesh to combine everything together. Let's go on that, okay, including the head, all right? So let's move on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to combine everything, like I said. So we're going to merge some subtools here. One thing I like to do is to organize my things a little better. I like to put on top everything I don't want to merge. For example, we have the shape of the hair. I'm going to name it here. I'm going to call it hair. Also, we don't want to Dynamesh the eyeballs. So I'm going to throw the eyeballs up to my list. There's arrows here, you see. This arrow up, you can go move it upstairs. So I'm going to keep the eyes up there. Another thing is the brows. I don't want to merge my brows. So I'm going to name this brows. Brows. I'm going to move upstairs. Okay, until the top. Yep. So all the things I don't want to merge are up now, which makes it easier for me because I can just select the first subtool now and just say merge down. So we're going to go here to the merge area, and I'm going to say merge down. Are you sure you want to merge down? You cannot undo. I say okay. And you can go merge down on everything. merge, 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 merge. So I'm merging everything and it's getting weird, the colors. I don't know what's up with ZBrush lately, but it's been doing this. But I'm just going one by one, merging all my subtools. And I don't need to worry because I know everything I don't want to merge is on the top. Okay. So now, if we painted our model, so we don't want to change the color. But if I look now, everything in the Zoom one tool, which I'm going to rename it to body. Okay. And if I want to paint this to the skin tone, just going to invert. I don't know if I explained to you all how to work with polygroups. I'm going to explain again anyways, but in ZBrush, every object inside a subtool can have a polygroup. How do I visualize the polygroups on, these different colors of geometry? Those are the polygroups, okay? If I want to visualize this, is Shift F on and off, you can see the polygroups. In this case, because my head is a different polygroup, if I hold Control Shift and I click on my head, I can isolate just the head. If I hold Control Shift, click and drag, I can invert my mask and I can paint it now. So it's all black. So I'm going to paint it to my skin color back again. Cool. One thing that might happen sometimes is that the fingers, if they're too close to each other, it might merge them when you Dynamesh it. This is something that what I like to do to avoid that is I just use smooth and I smooth a little bit, even though it changes the shape, you see. I smooth a little bit to make the fingers thinner for now, just so I make sure they don't combine, they don't merge, okay? So any area that you don't want to combine, you got to be careful about it because it's going to combine everything. Cool. So here's our shape. Now let's do a Dynamesh so we can combine everything like I just said. One thing here on the hand also, I'm just going to make sure that the hand, the shape of the hand is going in. And this is a nice moment to introduce a tool called Move Topological. You can see here that I want to move the polygons of the hand, but I'm moving everything together at once, you see. But what if I just want to move these polygons here from the hand, the red bits? What you can do is use a brush called Move Topological. That means that it's going to try to move only the topology of the hand. It's not combined. And on my UI, if you press J, you're going to see that the Move Topological is here. If you're not using my UI, you can press B. You press T for topology. And you're going to see that oh no, that's a lie. Press B and you press M for move, because it's a move brush. And then you're going to see the Move Topological here. If I click it, now I move only the separate piece topology that's it's happening. Any questions on that? It's a new brush, new concept. Anyone? I'm just making sure that this is penetrating, it's interlocking enough. So when I combine everything, it's not going to give me any weird artifacts. Okay. That's basically it, because we're still dealing with technical stuff here. And sometimes if things are not in a certain way, ZBrush is going to be like, I don't know what you do. So that's what I did here, right? All right, cool. Now we could do Dynamesh like this, but since our mesh is so low res, it's going to try to maintain that low res vibe to it, which is not a bad thing per se. But if you wanted a smoother result, we can subdivide a little bit this geometry. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to divisions, not dynamic. I'm going to actually subdivide this in real life. And I'm going to click one time, divide. Doop. So now it's a little smoother. Dynamesh is going to do a better job. So I just do once. It's enough. And let's see what happens. So we're going to go Dynamesh. Dynamesh right here. Dynamesh has a few things that it's important. One is the resolution. Because now we have a lot of geometry, we have a lot of shapes that we made that we want to make sure that these are maintained. If I do a Dynamesh of 64, let's see what happens. I'm just going to Dynamesh and see what happens. one important thing, because I subdivide my mesh, is gonna ask, do you want to keep subdivisions? I'm gonna say no, doesn't matter for me. You're just gonna say no. And you can see that because our Dynamesh is so low, you can see that the polygons are very low, and it merged the hand completely. It connected the legs because it doesn't have a resolution to hold the shape. So 64, as we just learned, it's very little. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna add the number for me normally, it's in about the 600, 700 normally. So let's try 600, see what happens. I'm gonna say Dynamesh, do you wanna say no? And now we're having a little more definition of shapes. You can see that it really held most of the details. If I zoom in, you can see my polygons are a bit dense and nice. So I feel like 60 was a very good number. And it might look dense, but don't worry about that. One thing that I love doing now, after I Dynamesh it, is to start smoothing the transitions. I don't want those harsh transitions, right? So now, this is the fun part. You can go with the smooth brush and just play around, like start smoothing some things, but be careful. Don't just do like blah, big smooth on everything. You know, go with care and love, like, oh, do I need this so defined? Probably not. I'm gonna go start cleaning it. Here on the neck is gonna start smoothing, connecting better to become one shape of a neck, you see. Here as well, you can go around, like start smoothing on the side. Maybe you want to leave a little bit of a shape here. So this part is one part I love doing it, because mainly I'm trying to see what kind of information I want to keep, what kind of information I want to take it out. And because this is a kid, it probably would be like just nuances of information. I'm not going to keep anything super strong. If I was doing a more stronger character, maybe I will keep things a little more defined. But you can see that I'm actually smoothing a lot. And again, it's because I don't need all that information, you know. You can go about here. And now it's just, again, you're just figuring out what you want to keep, what you don't. Do we have any questions?
Good for the minute, Letitia.
Okay. So if I know that all this stuff is a lot of technical concepts here, but I can always do it again if you need me to show it again. Again, remember, I smoothed the fingers, so it's a bit weird, just so they wouldn't glue to each other. So here, I don't want that big separation, so I'm trying to smooth around, you know, here on this little booty. On the back, you just go with calm. This is a part that I love because you're just making sure that everything that you work so hard on is working well. Okay. So here on the legs, you can smooth some stuff. You're not gonna stay on Dynamesh for too long. I'm just trying to smooth things. So trying to do that. Smooth the feet. And it's looking good. I think I'm going to make his leg just a smidge thinner here on the bottom. This, move this in. All right, his pectoral is still bothering me. It's too defined. So I'm just going to smooth a little more. I think it needs a bit more volume here and less here. So now it's a good moment to kind of like rotate your model, see if your shapes are in the right place. We still need to give some anatomy cues like clavicles and things like that. But before we do that, I'm going to ZBrush it. And again, ZBrush it. We could work with this topology like this. Yeah, we could. But because we're going to pose in the future our character, we want to have a certain flow of topology going on. And that's why we're going to ZBrush our model. Okay. And if for any reason what I'm saying is those words, zero mesh, whatever, is not making sense, let me know. I'll explain again. Okay. All right. So let's say that this is good. Just gonna clean here in the back. Cool. Nice, nice, nice. This is a bit flatter. All right. So let's say this is good. Now we're gonna do a zero mesh pass. And like I said, for zero mesh, you want a certain flow in your mesh going on. Make this a bit whiter here. Okay, I'm just cleaning. But on zero mesh, you want a certain flow going on. And I don't worry too much about the flow of the body, to be honest, because normally it gives you a very, for the body, what you want normally is like straight lines like this with parallel lines like this. Do, 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 do. As long as you have that on your topology, you go to pose it. But for, like I said, for the face, we want to be a bit more worrisome. Like we want a certain more directionality going on. Okay. So the way I like to do this, there are many ways to create directionality on a face, but the way I like to do it is to use what it's called a zero mesh guides. Okay. So I'm going to press B, Z for zero measures, and then there is one called zero mesh guides. And again, remember I told you guys, even if you don't understand anything, the only thing I want you to understand is we want orbicular for the eyes, for the flow of the eyes, and you want an orbicular for the mouth, for the flow of the mouth. Even if you only do that, it's already great. What I like to do is to do it twice, one inside, one outside like this, just to force it, because even though I'm drawing this, zero measure might not want to follow. It's just the nature of the being something automated, you know? So I like to draw it twice like this. And again, if this works, already gold for us. That's all we care. But so that's why I like to draw it twice like so. Anything else it's gonna do a decent job for us, you see. So now that we drew our guides, I'm gonna zero mesh it. But before I do so, I normally like to duplicate just to be safe. So I'm gonna duplicate my subtool and keep it hidden for now. Okay. And just to be safe, if we need to go back in time. All right, cool. So now we did that, and we're gonna go zero mesh it. If you go to the geometry tab, you're gonna have a zero mesh tab here. And there's a bunch of buttons. The only things you need to know are 3 things. Okay. You gotta decide how many polygons you want for the full body. And one number I normally put is 20 or 30. It depends. Let's put 30. I don't know. Let's put 20 just to be on the low side. We put 20 like this. And then one thing that is important is since we created this, we drew those curves in our model. We want the curve strength. This is the curve strength, is how much you want zero measure to follow your curves. So since I did it, I want to say I want way more than 50%. I want like 90% of focus on it. You know what I mean? And that's about it. So I'm going to click on zero measure, and it's going to take a little bit. It's going to process what it needs to be done. But hopefully we'll get a decent mesh. And this is very experimental, like maybe 20 was too much or was too little. You're kind of going to control Z many times until you get just the amount you want. So, okay, it's zero meshed it. So if I see my topology now, Shift F, right, to see topology like this. Let's see if the things that we told it to do was done. So, okay, there's a flow going on here. When it gets here, it gets a bit crazy. So I'm not super happy with that. Here on the mouth, there's a certain flow going on. That's great. But there is a weird kind of like, you see how the polygons are like not flowing as it should. So that's a red flag for me. One way to, yeah.
before we continue, Nanda has a quick question on the symmetry. They're asking, if I messed up the symmetry, how can I fix that?
Yes, that's a good question. I'll show it right after this, if that's okay. Okay. That's a great question because we do that all the time, right? But just to continue this thought here. Okay, so this is not the best results I wish I got. So I'm going to, and one thing also, if you want to know how many polygons you have, is right here, how many vertices actually. So I set 20, but ZBrush will do whatever it wants, really. So it's saying 40, which is double. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Control Z. I still have my guides here, you see. And I'm going to say, instead of 20, I'm going to put 10 to see if you get closer to less polygons. And I'm going to say ZBrush again. And let's see what happens. Pom, 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 pom. Job. All right. So let's see. So you can see that the body it's perfect. Okay. Why do I say perfect? Because what we want is just clean topology flow to be able to pose it. So this is perfect for the body. The body normally does a very good job. What it does not do a good job is sometimes on the face. So I'm going to Control Z, and I feel like something with my curves here is creating this weird thing. So I'm going to Control Z even my curves for now, because I want to draw it again. Because what happens sometimes is that the symmetry here, if I don't do it like super close here, the symmetry, it kind of does it wrong. So I'm going to try to draw it again. And this time I'm just going to draw once to see what happens. I'm going to draw like this. All right. I think 10 is still, you made about 20. So I'm going to go lower just a smidge more. And you can see this is not very fun part of the process. It's very repetitive. And, but when you get a good result, you get happy and it's worth it, you know. So I'm going to do just this time, and whatever we got. Yeah. Still doing something bad here. But I don't want to take too much of our time with this. So I'm going to call it good for now, and I might regret it, but I'm going to pretend this is good. I mean, we still have the going around, and then we have something going around here. So it's not the worst, you know. And this weird thing here is going on. I'm going to keep it for now. All right. Let's call it good. Let's check it out, the body, just to see. We have, you know, always good to check on the fingers, like if the flow is going straight like this, because it's going to be easier for us to pose the fingers. That is working well. That is working well. That's all you got to ask for this tool, really. So I'm going to pretend this is good and move forward. Okay. But if we look at our mesh now, you can see that we lost some information, especially what we did on the face. So I'm going to show you how to bring some of the information back. But before I do that, I'm going to answer the question about the symmetry. So let me do an example here. I'm going to get this sphere. And who was the person who asked? John, do you remember?
I think, oh gosh, that's terrible. I think it may have been
Nanda?
Vera, or
okay.
Nanda, sorry.
Okay, so if for some reason,
Nanda,
let's say
yes.
I did this, right? Like I was doing something and I did this to my model. So you can see that it's not symmetrical, the topology anymore, right? Like this. One way to fix this, there's many ways in ZBrush. One way is you can go to the deformation tab. Inside here, there's a bunch of weird stuff, but there's a button called Smart Resim. And if you click it, it's going to try to resim whatever you did, you see. So whatever I did on this side, doop, it's going to try to do it. It doesn't do perfect, that's for sure. One other way that you could try, well, I don't want to complicate things too much, but the smart resim, if you turn symmetry now, it's going to eventually get your symmetry back. If I did it on the face for some reason, let's do it on the body. Like, let's say that for some reason, I moved the ear and I didn't have symmetry on, right? So if I do smart resim, you can see that it's going to fix it, what I did. You see? I think that's the simpler way I would explain. I don't want to complicate things, but it's just use smart resim and then it goes back. Is that clear? Oops. Right.
Okay, good. We've got a follow-up question from Nanda as well. Do you usually do topology in ZBrush, or do you use another software and re-import it into ZBrush to continue working on it?
That's a good question. For this class, we're going to use this topology from ZBrush. And just because we're doing VizDev modeling, so it doesn't matter too much. The topology is perfect. It's just good enough for us to pose it. But if I was doing for animation, like I would build the topology by hand in Maya. So I use Maya. You can use so many different softwares, but the one I normally enjoy doing it is in Maya. Cool. All right, so this is the mesh I got. Again, like I feel like this solution here is going to bite me later on, but I'm going to keep going because, you know, you got to move on with your life. Doesn't need to be perfect. I could stay here hours trying to find the perfect solution, but you know, whatever. So with that done, you can see that we lost some information that we did on the face and, you know, not so much on the body. The body was very simple, but on the face especially, I lost a bunch of stuff that I did. So that's why you guys notice that I copy my model. I did a copy of my model because in ZBrush, there is a thing called project. And what that does is what it says. It's going to try to project my higher resolution model that has more details into a lower resolution model that has less details, okay? So this is used all the time because every time you zero mesh something, you're going to lose some level of details. And then the way to do it is that you duplicate your subtool with a lot of details, and you're going to project those details back to your model. How do we do that? Let's see it. So I have my low res, and I'm just for clarity, I'm going to rename this to low res. Okay, this is my new mesh. And I have this one, which I'm going to call my high res. High res, just so we don't get lost here, okay? And like I said, I'm going to project one to the other. I'm going to project the high res to the low res. Do I need all these other things? No, so I'm going to hide the eyes of it because I only want to project one to the other, okay? All right, so like I said, I want this one project to this one, but very important thing, look at this. I want to project all this nice detail into this thing that is a mush, right, for now. So what can we do? Let's go ahead. I have both with the eyes open. Everything else is the eyes are closed because I don't want to project anything else, only those things. You select the model that you want to receive the projection, which is the low resolution, this one. Okay. And the high res, and then I'm going to say project. So down here on the subtool panel, there is a button called project. Here you go. And we don't need to mess around with any of this, okay? The only thing we need to know is that we can project geometry and we can project color. Right now, my color got lost when I did a zero mesh. So if you want back the color that we painted, you keep it on the color. If not, you can turn it off. So if I say project now, it's gonna ask, do you want to project the color as well? And I say, sure. Now you can see that I have my color back. I have some shapes back, but I still have very little detail. Why? Because I didn't subdivide this model quite yet. So the trick here is, again, you're projecting this model into a low-res model, right? But if I want to hold the details of this, I need to subdivide my low-res model to hold it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide my model by 1. So my topology is this. If I go here and I say divide, boop, now I have higher resolution topology. So I'm going to project again my details to this higher resolution. Project. Boop. Now you can see that I got back all those details on the nose, some on the eyes, etc. So if I want to again get more details, I can divide my model again one more time. So I'm going to go divide, boop, and I'm going to say project again. Boop. And now I have all those details. The best way to know if you got all the details on is to swap between the subtools. So if I click on this one, which is the other one, and click on this one, you can see that it changes, nothing changes, which means it's pretty damn close to the amount of details that I had before. So now I have all the details on my new topology. Look at this flow. This is the old one, zero mesh, no flow. This is the new one, all the details, but I have flow. This is where now we can forget about all this technical stuff and we can just have fun. But this technical bit is very important, especially if you want to pose your character, okay? So if for some reason that was not clear what I was saying, let me know. But for now, this is all we need to do to get our flow going. And since now they both have the same amount of details, I can throw away my high res. I don't need it anymore because I already project everything I wanted. So if I go delete, okay, and then I can turn on my eyes, my brows, my hair, and oops, and there we go. We can see everything. All right, that was a lot of technical stuff. How are you guys feeling? How are you guys doing? Everyone's good, surviving there? That's the part that it sucks to teach because, you know, it's just a matter of, it's not artistical at all. It's very painful. So good, all good. All right. So now we have a topology. Most importantly, we have levels of subdivision. So we have this high res if we need to do little details and such. But we also have a low res. If I go to my divisions here, you can see that I have 3 levels of subdivision. If I go to 0 to 1, I guess, this is our topology that we made. And then you can go to 2 and 3, and we're going to be up and down all the time. And the shortcut to go up and down is Shift D, choop, choop, you go down. And if you press D, you go up. Shift D, you go down. D, you go up. You can see here changing. Check it out. Shift D, I'm going down. D, I'm going up. All right. So that is the end of this very painful process called zero mesh and dynamesh. And it's very painful for me, at least, to have to explain, because you guys are going to have to experiment and it's going to hurt, and it's not straightforward, and you know, but it helps a lot. It's a great tool to know and to use it. So again, if you want to make big changes on your topology, go to the lower resolution level that we have. I'm a resolution number 1. I can go to number 1 and I can change things and clean it and smooth it to make things flow better. If you want to do small changes, like clean up the mouth or something, you go to your high resolution and then you go there and you start doing stuff. Cool. That's very important to the concept. Big changes, lower resolution. Small changes, big resolution. Okay. All right, so let's add a few anatomy cues here. like the clavicle, for example, you know. And now is the time that we're actually going to do some sculpting. If you guys notice, we did very little sculpting so far. We did a lot of moving. Now we're going to do some sculpting. Are you guys ready? Okay. Any questions before I start doing it?
I think we're good for the moment. We've
okay.
Yep.
Was that painful?
Each other out, and Marie. Was that painful?
That is painful, man. But you know, it is what it is. We gotta do it.
Put the work in.
Yeah. ZBrush is very artistical most of the time, but there's some stuff like this stuff that you just gotta accept is part of life. All right, so let's add some clavicle again. Like in a small child, this is gonna be all nuances. But if we look here in our model, not Raphael's model, you can see that the clavicle, you know, the muscles on the neck, I'm gonna sculpt here very big, but we have behind it, if you touch behind your ear, there is a little thing right behind your lobe here that is the mastoid process. It's a little bone, very strong, thick bone. That doesn't do that, obviously, but it's right here. And this bone is in charge to hold the sternum cladomastoid. Okay, so sternocleidomastoid is going to come down like so in a diagonal. It's one of the most beautiful things also because it comes in this super nice diagonal like this. It's very charming. So this is very important. And again, because we're doing a child, we can do very little, like just a nuance of anatomy here for it. But the important thing is that the sternocleidomastoid, which is this muscle here, right, connects to the clado, which is the clavicle, okay, and to the sternum a little bit. So the name is sternum, connects to the sternum, clado connects to the clavicle, mastoid connects to the mastoid process behind your ear. And this muscle cuts like this, and it creates this little dip right here in between the clavicles. So one thing I like to do is instead of actually sculpting a lot of the clavicle, I like to sculpt out that little dip here, like this. You see, it's a little dip like this. And again, everything we're gonna do is gonna be a bit subtle. And then we can give the head of the clavicle, and then the clavicle normally comes like this, and it connects right here on the top of the shoulder, okay? Obviously, we're not gonna do all that stuff. We're just gonna put the head of the clavicle here, normally on a kid, and this little area here that you're gonna see. All the rest is gonna be underneath all the muscles and stuff. So you can see a little nuance of a clavicle going on. And again, I like to go slow and really kind of like put stuff in like this. You can look from far. It's there, right? I'm going to emphasize a little bit more so we can see a little better. And okay, so the sternocleido, if you start cutting in here, you can see that the sternocleido will be here. And then there is this little digastric muscles here that goes like this way. And so obviously we're not going to do that, but what happens is it's a little deeper in this area here. So I'm just carving a little bit. Again, very subtle. You see, it's very subtle. The light is hitting and it's working. This muscle here that you can see there's like a sheen going on like this. This is called the platysma muscle. And it's what lets you do like, you know, this kind of weird movements up and down. But we don't need to mark it or anything. I'm just telling you new stuff. All right, cool. So that's the area I like to mark. One thing I'd like to mark also in the back, very subtle, is the clavicle. And no, not the clavicle, sorry. What's the name of this guy again? This one here. Gosh, I forgot. I
was about to say the deltoid, but it's
no, this bone here, it's Scapula. Yeah.
Oh, the scapula. Sorry.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay, cool. So sometimes I like to mark a little bit of the scapula. And what you can see here is that there is the crest here of the scapula, right? That this side is better to see, that the muscle connects and stuff. And right here, just like the clavicle, right here, this little head sometimes pokes out if someone is skinny enough. And then it's almost like this is a plane, and then there is another plane, right? So this crest here and this 2 points, sometimes they poke out, which is nice. So we can do a little bit of that. So very subtle, we can just mark a little bit of that poke here, you see? And then mark a little bit on the bottom and just fill it out to create that little plane. It's very subtle, you can see, but it's in there, see? So doesn't matter, he's gonna be wearing clothes and all, but I like to mark right here in the bottom, especially a little bit of it, you see? Poke it out, because it does poke out from the shape, because it's a bone on top of a bone, right? So it's nice to add that little break over there. To be clear, is this shape here, okay? So it's like this. So maybe I'm gonna emphasize just a smidge more so you guys can see properly. But I like to emphasize this crest, and then I fill in the bone volume here, and then I can clean it up, smooth it out. And now it's a bit better to see, yeah. That's good. Cool. All right, let's go to the knee. The knee is very important. So let's check it out, what happens to the knee here. Okay. So what happens to the knee is that there is the head of the bone, right? But then there is the little, what's the name? The tendons of the muscles, they connect, they hold to those heads, you know, and it creates this kind of like diamond shape, not diamond, this triangular shape upside down. So we don't need to go crazy again. We can just like create a little bit of that diamond shape here. And the way is to carve a little bit here and give volume right here. It's very simple. Like we can just do something very basic like this. It already starts feeling like a knee, you see? And again, it's like this muscle comes here, connects to the head. This muscle come here, connects to the head. And that's why it creates this shape, okay? So just trying to do that. Sometimes this area bulges a little bit because there's the head of this bone from the leg, right? That comes here. So you can do a little bit of that bulge there as well. That's too much anatomy. I'm gonna smooth a little more. All right, cool. All right. And so normally the anatomy I like to do is really where the bones change shape. So remember, we have the head of the bone that's gonna touch here. So we give just a little bit of insight right here. Then we can smooth it. And then down here, remember, there's our diagonal. So this one goes lower, the bone comes and it goes lower and creates that head. So that's what I'm gonna do. So you can see that diagonal happening. And maybe it's too much diagonal, but now you can see both heads going on here. We have this one. I can push this in. And then we have this one on the bottom here. That's about it. I need a little more back foot here. Yeah, I don't need to do, again, too much. We're gonna work a lot on the hand next class. Our hands are very, weird. For now, if you want to bring back that volume that we took off from the fingers, you can do B for brush, I for inflate, and then there's an inflate brush right here that you can go around just like inflate back those fingers because it looks very bad. So I'm going to inflate back here some of my finger. It feels a bit better now. Inflate the tips of the fingers. But just for now, we're gonna do some hand motions soon. But really, that's all the bone structure that I add to my model, to be quite honest. So we have about 5 minutes, and I'm gonna do something very important for us to feel our character, okay? Which is to close his mouth. Now that we have topology to the orbicular, the mouth, we can close things easier. But one thing I like to do is to make sure I can close and open anytime I want. And this is actually quite good because you can see that there is a line here that is the corner of my mouth. So I'm going to respect that. I'm going to make sure that that line is the corner of my mouth. Okay. So let's close that mouth with very much love and care. And we can use masking as well. So if you want to hold control and change your mask to lasso, and we can mask the top part of the face like this, we can actually start closing the mouth. So I'm going to bring this up. It's slowly, okay? Always slowly. Oops. Start slowly closing the mouth. And I can invert the mask, control click, and I can come here, push some of this down back, and then I'm going to slowly push this up. And one thing that is interesting, you guys are going to see that I'm breaking here without knowing that I'm breaking, is that when you push something up, look what happens in the bottom. You're not closing really the mouth, you see. So we got to always, when you're closing the mouth, remember to look from the bottom and then close that mouth on the bottom as well, or else it's going to be very different. Okay. Okay. So just want to make sure I get a little bit of this going on, making sure they're going to touch when I close. And you can invert and kind of like push this lip a little as well until the mouth's closed. And now that you have the topology, you kind of can like almost use the topology as like a drawing guide. Like if I'm going to close it, I want this to be, you know, straight. So I'm looking if my topology is looking straight. It's a good way to know if you're doing it correctly. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to invert my mask, make sure it's a bit straight, especially this loops here that are close to the mouth. This here a little bit like this. So I'm just trying to organize my polygons. And then we have closed mouth. If I go up on my subdivision, you can see that his mouth is closed. We need to clean up some definitions, but if I wanted, I could like just give a little bit of a very simple smile like this. And also, I might check if my mouth is feeling too small, maybe. So I can look from the bottom and I can just diagonally, remember, it's like a diagonal pull. Now we know that there's 3 muscles here, right? Let me draw again. We have the zygomatic major, the rhizolis, the depressor, the loop here in the mouth, and they're all pushing the face diagonal on the bone. Okay, so now I can know that I need to push this diagonally to make a mouth shape. All right, we can give a little bit of shape for now. It's a little simple smile, but we still need to define a ton of stuff when the mouth is feeling very soft. So this is the last thing I'm going to do today, I swear. We're going to define the mouth. And how do we do that? I'm going to use my MAH cut brush that I already showed to you all. And I'm just going to create that plane break on the lip, see? And start seeing that plane break going on. And same thing on the bottom. Just going to start creating that plane break down here, very slow. And now we have a mouth shape. Might not be great, but we can work with it, you know, do changes and stuff. All right, any final questions before we close it? I think we got a lot of time already.
Packed a lot in as ever, Letitia. We just have one question from Jonathan Walker, who's wondering, will we learn how to make simple clothing for our characters?
Yes, next week, actually, we're going to give clothes to our character. We're going to continue working on his hair. And obviously right now he has a very plain hair. And we're going to paint a little better. So next week is going to be actually very fun because we're going to do a bunch of clothes and hair and make it look pretty, you know, basically. Because this is like the best we can get with the shapes we need. And now we just continue making this pretty and prettier. Cool.
Fantastic, fantastic. Lou's wondering if you're gonna show us how to model some teeth.
Yes, we're gonna do teeth, tongue, and gums. I think it's next week as well on the schedule.
Fantastic. Yeah. Jordan is wondering, is there a simple way to toggle between an open and closed mouth?
I can show some layers. The layers in ZBrush, there's some layer stuff that it behaves pretty weird, and I do not like it. But you could potentially use layers in ZBrush to close and open the mouth, and I can show that next week. Remind me. But yes, there is a way. It's not the most beautiful way, but there is also polygroups, which I can show next week as well. I'll probably show polygroups because it's better than layers. Unfortunately, like you talk about layers and it's like, oh, layers, that's awesome. No, it's not great, unfortunately. So that's all I can say. But yeah.
No problem. And Catalin was wondering, could you show your iPad? This would be in response to Nomad. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. My iPad is in the other room. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna record a video, and I have a video to share with you all. If you want this video and also the hand model, I'm gonna put on the Discord. Okay.
Perfect.
So everything I'm gonna share from now on is gonna be on our Discord place. And I'm going to put a video of the Nomad. I'm going to put a video of my UI, and I'm going to put the hands, that base that I made too, so you all can have it. Is that cool?
Fantastic.
So hold the beat on that.
Just to clarify with the Discord, is that where exactly is that? Is that one of the study groups? Is that something that you're setting up, or
no, it's the study group.
Patricia?
Let me open
Fantastic.
Here.
Excellent.
Yes.
So it was just
so it's all in one place. Yeah. Excellent. So let me open my Discord here just to show you all.
I think that most recent link I put in should take you there, folks, but Letitia's just going to show you just now. We are wonderful.
This study group here. The study groups, there's one called Leticia, whatever. And this is the one where I'm going to be putting all the good stuff for you guys from now on. Okay.
Excellent.
And this is a great talk, by the way. Yes. Everyone should watch it. Okay, I even put a link already here for interface stuff. If you guys want to watch it, it's already in here on the study group. All right, I don't want to take more of people's time. I know we're on time, but next week, come please, because it's the fun part. We're going to put clothes, we're going to define his eyes and things like that. It's going to be super awesome.
Fantastic. Oh, that's great, Letitia. I'm so pleased the study group's been so useful to everybody and yourself. That's brilliant. As I said, I'll just pop that link in one more time, so we're good to go. You can find Patricia and Prashan, who are heading that up, and you are with us on the 4th of December, if I'm not mistaken, Letitia. So that'll be great.
Yes.
Next week will be more great stuff. We've got loads of people saying thank you very much.
Yeah, it was great.
Wonderful.
This part is painful, the technical part, but now we're gonna have a ton of fun, which is nice.
Excellent. Well, it's always a pleasure to see you, everyone. As I say, there's lots happening on the Discord, not just Letitia's study group, but we've got others as well. But if you haven't noticed already, our event calendar over the winter season is about to become very, very busy with some names and faces that you will definitely know already. So please feel free to join us, bring your pals. That would be wonderful to see you. Letitia, if you're free, come and hang out with us. We've got some cool names. I'm getting the chance to chat to John Hardesty and Wouter Topes. That's always fun tomorrow. But that's it from me. It's always a pleasure to see you as well, Letitia. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you on the Discord.
Yeah, and just a reminder, December 5th, right? Or 4th? 5th.
Fourth is in my calendar, unless there's been a correction I haven't seen today. But I've got December 4th at the time of
December
this
4th.
recording. Yeah,
Okay.
December 4th is what.
That's
what
gonna
I
be the
have
next
just now.
class.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
Awesome.
just keep an eye on the newsletter, folks. If any changes happen on that, don't worry, you all be told in good time. All right. That's us. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Good to see you. Bye.